across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Should we do this? Top of the morning, 2 minutes past 6. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan, and oh boy, have we got work to do. The sun has barely risen over the country, but breaking this morning, Starmer digs in, with the Prime Minister making it known he will not quit if the Cabinet tell him to, and he will fight any leadership election. Is Starmer here to stay? Meanwhile, Andy Burnham has the approval of the Labour Party machine to re-enter Parliament. So is the King of the North heading for number 10. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage says if you want an early election, vote for Angela Rayner, as he predicts financial meltdown if the ginger growler gets in. And with the political right in this country horribly divided, here's my question to you at 4 minutes past 6. Do Nigel and Kemi need to do a deal to save Britain? I get it, I hear you. The Tories were terrible. They've destroyed the country. I get it. I agree. But do you want a hellish left-wing coalition made up of Sir Keir Starmer or Angela Rayner, featuring Sir Ed Davey, whoever's in charge of the SNP these days? Do you want a left-wing rainbow coalition propped up by none other than Zach Polanski, Captain Cleavage himself? Surely that will be a boob. I get it, I hear you. Can you please calm down? We hate the Tories. They've messed up. Illiberal, failed lockdowns, net zero, wokery in our public institutions, open borders. I get it, they messed up. But we're in trouble, folks. So do Nigel and Kemi need to do a deal to save Britain? I can't answer that question. I need your help. You decide. Do Nigel and Kemi need to do a deal? Do they need to go into a smoke-filled room, drink a few shandies and hammer out a deal to save Britain? 0344 499 1000. You decide. I'm putting you in charge. Lovely question from Dave the engineer this morning. If you were Prime Minister, what would be the first thing you would do? Let's throw that into the mix. But Kemi and Nige, should they do a deal? Because I think a lot of people like Kemi. They hate the Tories, but they think she's all right. Or is it too much of a compromise? Now, you can text the word TALK in your message to 87222. You can leave us a voice note. We love a voice note. And you can hear us on the radio, I'm delighted to say. The DNA of Talk is radio. I should know that. I used to be a phone operator at Talk Radio in 1998. So the DNA of this brand is in radio. My DNA is in this brand. But something's happened because it's TV now. And yes, you can watch the show and you can see Dolan's Dispatch and my amazing guests and the bloody Observer newspaper, which never has any news anymore. Luckily, they've not given me the Financial Times because I don't understand the headlines ever. I just don't understand them. And I've got a degree in everything I just don't understand. Should Nigel and Kemi do a deal to save Britain? That is today's conversation. We need to have that conversation. And if you're angry about the idea, you've got to call me and tell me why. Because I don't know. I'm not saying do it or don't do it. I just don't want Captain Cleavage in number 10. A dangerous and stupid man. So if you want to see the show, all you've got to do is head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. The brilliant Luke is directing our TV output today. Solope is taking your calls. Dean Spencer, back with a vengeance. The numbers are already up. The Worm's through the roof. The Worm is the electronic model that shows how many people are listening, and I can't lie, every single weekend now we're smashing out 30,000 people watching the show live. Literally, that's just the beginning of our audience. But we're reaching millions every year. So if you want to join that conversation, if you want to see the show, head to YouTube. That's right, YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop and you'll see me waving at the camera and chucking the Financial Times at it. I just don't understand their headlines. So as the saying goes, let's talk. And I'm going to bring you today's front pages, but before we start, I will tell you that today's programme is dedicated to Dave Rhodes. David Rhodes is the senior engineer at Talk. I say senior because you should see the money he's on. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, he's on... can I just tell you, he's on senior cash. Dave, the engineer, not cheap, OK? And other departments suffer to accommodate Dave, but let me tell you, he's worth it because he's the best in the business. He's a double threat, brilliant human being, and great at his job. Anyway, a special thing to say about Dave, because Dave's birthday was yesterday. He kept it very, very quiet because he's a discreet man, unlike Dean Spencer, who wears It's My Birthday badges on his birthday. What a self-publicist old Spencer is. Have you heard? It's my birthday. Well, Dave, the engineer, David Rhodes, is much more discreet than that. Dave, by the way, is a broadcaster as well as an engineer. And he's here, and it's his weekend birthday thing. What is that, a sentence? It was his birthday yesterday. So happy birthday, Dave. And I'm excited. I shouldn't really. Shall I spoil the surprise? Shall I tell him? Basically, we've ordered you a stripogram, which I know is not politically correct. It was Dean Spencer's idea. We've ordered a stripogram. So... Big Jim will be here at 10. And let me tell you, he's one of the good guys. He's been tested for HIV and all clean bill of health. He has a cold sore, but it's not the herpes variety. You'll be fine. So many happy returns to my lovely engineer, Dave, who's the best in the business. Folks, let's get to the front pages. An almighty row has broken out between Nigel Farage and Carol Vorderman, formerly off of Countdown before she went mad. So Sunday Mirror, Countdown Carol says Farage's numbers don't add up. Maths genius urges people not to vote for reform. Here's an exclusive from the Mirror. Maths guru Carol Vorderman has blasted reform, saying promises of lower tax bills do not add up. The Countdown favourite accused Nigel Farage's party of hypocrisy, lies and driving division. She urged people not to vote for them in Thursday's crucial local elections and said they've had to put up council tax in every council. Their promises are a load of rubbish. Can we talk about Carol Vorderman? First of all, why are the Mirror calling her Countdown Carol? She's not been on Countdown for 25 years. It's over 2 decades ago that she was on Countdown, and she was so incredibly greedy that Channel 4 had to get rid of her. Did you know that, Dean Spencer? She was on millions to, like, write numbers on a board. I could do that. You could do that. And I'd do it for half. I'd do it for 100 quid a day and a couple of M&S sandwiches. I would present Countdown for 100 quid a show and a co-op meal deal. Those are my terms. Because it's an easy gig, isn't it? You could do it in your sleep. It's not like hosting Talk Breakfast, which is one of the biggest jobs in media, where Dean and I get in at 2 a.m. and we prepare the show. We work our socks off. Dave, the engineer's in here, recalibrating the sound system. He's relentless, Dave, the engineer. Dave, let me tell you, is the Sir George Martin of Talk, OK? And yes, I am McCartney. Dean Spencer is Ringo. But look, the bottom line, folks, is that this is insane. Carol Vorderman hasn't been on Countdown for 2 decades. I hosted a show called Balls of Steel in, what was that? 2005 is when we had our first series. I did 3 series. It was watched by millions of people. I don't go around calling myself Mark Dolan from Balls of Steel. That's an old story. But no. Carol, all she's got is blinking countdown. Anyway, she wanted millions to do that easy show. And they said, we're not going to pay you because there's nothing to it. And they replaced her with the very fragrant Rachel Riley, who I believe to be a very nice lady and quite statuesque, isn't she? Can we say that? Old Rachel Riley? I think so. I think she's statuesque. I think she's a handsome woman and a great broadcaster. And I've met her. Very nice lady. And old Rachel Riley, she did that countdown gig for a fraction of what old Vorders was on. Rachel Riley, I think she's fresh out of university or something. She's like, yeah, I'll do it for 100 quid and a co-op meal deal. So Carol's got delusions of grandeur, clinging on to what's she done since Countdown? Answers on a postcard. Anyway, she's decided. Oh my! See, this is why we pay David the big bucks. That's a great tune, isn't it? The whole budget for today's show is going to go on the royalties for that, because there's somebody somewhere making a fortune every time that gets played. And it's Countdown for Carol and her credibility. Because, here we go, it's about to wrap up. That's it, and that is the end of Carol's career. Because she doesn't like Nigel Farage. Now, there's a few things to say. Of course she doesn't. The people that don't like reform, and probably hate the Tories as well, are the latte lefties who have money in the bank, no mortgage, and they live in areas untouched by the failed policies of our political establishment. People like Carol Vorderman don't live next to a migrant hotel. They don't live next door to a house of multiple occupancy. They haven't lost a local army barracks used by youngsters in the cadets so they can have physical and mental education. There's none of that. They live in leafy suburbs of North London with sprawling south-facing gardens, and they live in estates in the home counties. They don't live in the real world, and that's why they hate Farage. And it's interesting because if old Carol Vorderman, Countdown Queen herself, if she lived in Crowborough, where 500 undocumented men, some of whom may be criminals, are down the road, she would suddenly have a Damascene conversion to the reform cause. She would have a Nigel Forever tattoo on her left buttock. She would. And she'd have it written the wrong way round so she could read it in the mirror. So instead, because she's a latte lefty with an enormous disposable income, of course she doesn't like Reform UK. The elite don't. Why would they? And they don't care about the poor. Because look at this Labour government. So Carol Vorderman, who's this financial wizard apparently, and a maths genius, well, she told us all to vote Labour. So Carol, if you're watching, and I'm almost certain she watches the show, there's nothing this good anywhere else, and that is an actual fact. There's nothing. There is nothing this good anywhere else. And that's why we're doing the numbers. So sorry. The numbers don't lie. We're beginning to do TV numbers now, and we haven't even started yet. So, Carol, if you're watching this, can you explain the mathematics of this Labour government? Because I'll give you a few numbers, and this is not a written monologue. This is not Dolan's dispatch that I spend hours on. This is just literally off the cuff. Here we go. Can you explain the mathematics to me, Carol, of inflation having been 2% under Rishi Sunak and the evil Tories? 2%. Carol, do you know what 2% is? It's target. 2% is considered the perfect amount of inflation, because if you have less inflation, then you've got no growth in the economy. So you need a bit of inflation, but you don't want too much. So the Bank of England has decided that the perfect amount of inflation is not 1% or 3%, Dean, it's 2%, which is what Rishi Sunak achieved in July 2024 at the election, when, Carol, you urged us to vote Labour. What about, have you heard of, I'll give you another number, G7. Have you heard of the G7? I know you're very good with figures. Lovely, Carol. So G7, that is the group of the 7 biggest economies in the world. It's called G7. And for now, we're in it, although I suspect we'll fall out of it shortly, thanks to this socialist outfit that are in charge. But in July of 2024, we had the highest economic growth of the G7, ahead of Canada and the United States. So that's good, isn't it? So can you explain the mathematics of going from 2% inflation, which is perfect, and the highest growth in the G7, to the lowest growth in the G7, zero growth in January of this year, and inflation expected to reach 6% in the months ahead? Can you take me to... And don't give me the Iran war, Carol, because inflation was almost double the Bank of England's target at the beginning of this year, before the invasion of Iran was even a twinkle in Donald Trump's eye. So explain the mathematics of that. 2% inflation under Rishi, highest growth in the G7, both of which have gone south since your Labour government got into power. This is the same Carol Vorderman that suddenly decided after the election that she regretted encouraging everyone to vote Labour because of the pensioners shivering in their homes. Carol's never shivered in her home. She sold her place for over £1 million. She's absolutely loaded. She's a multi-millionaire. And here's what I don't understand about these latte lefties, OK? I'm all for wealth creation. I'm not a millionaire. I would encourage people to become millionaires, and I love it when I see rich people. And I'd love it if Elon Musk lived here. Bring on the billionaires, because they go shopping here, they create businesses, and they employ people. So I love the billionaires. And I would say to Carol, a woman of means, why don't you give your money away? If you're so worried about inequality, why don't you write a cheque and give away all your assets and just have, like, I don't know, a one-bedroom cottage on the Wirral? Would that be so bad if you're such a socialist? But no, it's interesting, isn't it? The lefties, they're very, very worried about inequality, but quite happy to remain comfortably off themselves and insulated from the realities and consequences of socialist policies. Anyway, the latest thing now, Carol is going to spearhead a campaign for these May local elections to get people to vote tactically. She'll do the same thing at the general election to keep Farage out. Will it work? Of course it won't, because ironically, it's Carol's numbers that don't add up. It is 6:19. I'm going to bring into the studio one of the finest political advisors in the country, plus more front pages. Don't go anywhere.
Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
They sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
Emily!
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like...
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 6:22. With me live in the studio, the presentation coach, a man that's advised prime ministers and ministers, Graham Davis. Good morning, Graham.
Good morning. Despite the double blockade and the Straits of Hormuz, no amount of bank holiday congestion was going to stop me coming back into your studio, Mark.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here because we need your truth bombs, your wisdom, your insight and much besides. Let's have a look at today's front pages. The Sunday Times revealed £7 million income tax bill for Prince William, ex-Marines guarding schools and synagogues, and Bond chaos fears if Reeves ousted with the Prime Minister. Sunday Mirror countdown carol says Farage's numbers do not add up. The Sun on Sunday, Britain's Got Talent star in Video Storm, fury at KSI Punch Baby jibe. And last but not least, the Mail on Sunday, shocking corporation cover-up. Violent BBC presenter broke wrist of female colleague. We've got the inside story on that one, which we shall come to. But our conversation this morning is a big one, and it's an important one, Graham. And it's about the divided right in this country and whether Kemi and Nigel should do a deal to save Britain. What do you think?
There is a great deal of personal dislike between Nigel and Kemi, and that will be a huge barrier. And the moment that the Conservative Party decides, for whatever electoral reason, to stand down in particular seats in favour of reform, they might as well lie down and surrender. I can't see any form of cooperation occurring this side of a general election.
It's a problem for both parties to be seen to be making a deal before the election. Reform voters will feel like it's a betrayal because they want full fat conservatism and they want radical change, and Tory voters who are maybe on the moderate One Nation side don't want to see Nigel being helped into number 10. So it's a bit of a lose-lose for both sides if they publicly do a deal.
Every genuine party loyalist of every genuine political party wants to fight under that banner and not have the leadership deprive them of the opportunity to fight under that banner. And any form of pre-election deal will inevitably do exactly that.
That said, and echoing old Carol Vorderman, the numbers, the mathematics don't quite add up for reform at this point, do they? Unless there are a lot of shy Farage supporters out there, it would appear that they've peaked in the polls and may not have enough seats to form an overall majority.
It's difficult to see them going beyond that magic 30 points in the polls. They seem to be teetering between 27 and 30, but it feels to me as if there is a glass ceiling at 30. And that's fine for them to a certain extent, but it does mean that they will find great difficulty getting up to the magic level of an overall majority. However, the plus side is that they are probably, in my opinion, scandal-proof from now on. There might be various mutterings about the financial arrangements of reform or previous party allegiances, but I think that they can't go below around about 26 or 27
That's
points.
interesting. So they've achieved now a very valuable floor in their support.
They've reached a level of equilibrium below which they won't go.
What about shy reform voters? Is there a silent majority out there that may back Farage, and this conversation is quite academic when they've got a 100-seat majority?
My feeling is that all those people who've lurched away or would be lurching away from the Conservative Party have already done that lurch, and there aren't many more dormant potential reform voters waiting to come out.
Kemi has stopped the bleeding.
The bleeding has stopped, but not necessarily as a result of anything that Kemi Badenoch has done.
Interesting. So what you're saying is there will be very unlikely to be a public deal before the election.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
However, will voters of the right be kicking themselves if the mathematics don't even add up for the Tories and Reform after the election, and we're subjected to 5 years of a left-wing rainbow coalition?
Yes, indeed. There might be some retrospective arse-kicking, as it were. But the thing is, individual punters can't make that calculation. It's up to the great powers that be to do so.
It's a gamble, isn't it? It's a gamble of the right to take the view that after the election in a hung parliament, Reform and the Tories would have enough seats to form a government. Because, I mean, we can agree it's certain that in a hung parliament they would work together.
The only way in which they would work together would be this. It's not necessarily the case that Reform will get more seats than the Tories, although that's the most likely. In that scenario, I believe that Farage would have a price for bringing the Tories into a coalition, and that price would be the removal of Kemi Badenoch as leader.
Are you serious?
Yes, I am.
So you have it on good authority that there is bad blood between those two people?
Yes, I do.
And you don't think that ideological similarities could heal that wound?
It's the ideological similarities that are causing the problem.
But aren't they both Conservatives?
Nigel Farage believes in the triple lock. He believes in high welfare spending. And actually, he believes in a big state. I am not sure that Reform overall are as conservative as they make out to be.
That's interesting. And what is the source of the bad blood between Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage, do you think?
They have always clashed on a personal basis whenever they've met each other socially, which hasn't been very often. And, of course, there has been a tendency, hasn't there, for an individual Tory politician to say terrible things about Reform and then suddenly to go over to Reform. And you might think, well, that is just what's going to happen this time as well in relation to Kemi and Nigel. I think it's more profound between those two.
Is there a cloak and dagger sort of deal that can be done before the election, which is not public? Can there be less effusive campaigning in certain seats by one party or the other, so that you don't have an overt deal, but the Tories try less hard in some areas and vice versa?
Once you put a name down nominated under the name of your party, there will automatically be campaigning and there will automatically be people voting for that name. Just by virtue of doing so makes that sotto voce, taking your foot off the accelerator, pretty valueless.
Now, a conflict-ridden Tory Reform coalition with alpha personalities falling out the whole time is infinitely preferable to a left-wing coalition populated by Labour, the SNP, the Greens and the Lib Dems. So surely a rather conflict-ridden Tory Reform coalition is preferable, the lesser of two evils.
That may well be right. You have to look at the personalities on the left, and let's look at the most extreme personality. We have Zach Polanski, an self-admitted breast whisperer who believes that women can have penises, who spreads disinformation about brave policemen, about how they tackled an armed terrorist suspect on the streets of London. He thinks he's cooler than a polar bear's toenails, but as a sensible, sensitive, mainstream party leader, there is no beginning to his talents.
No, well, I think that's a fair point, and I think it's the threat of Polanski that could focus minds. So actually, you don't even see a sort of pre-election non-deal happening between the Tories and Reform. You think they will both go all out in every seat?
I can't see the real benefits of the sotto voce non-deal outweighing the real harm that each leader would be doing to their own party and their own activists.
However, is there a risk that they do cancel each other out, opening the door to another 5 years of Labour?
There is a risk. The right in British politics has had an easy ride for more than 100 years because there's only been one credible mainstream right-wing party, whereas the left have had to squabble for left-of-centre votes all the time. Now the right are discovering what exactly that means. And of course Reform have their own fundamentalist issue on their right. Restore will chip away at the right of Reform, and they may actually have to face an attack from both sides.
So what do you think will happen? How do you see this panning out after the election?
I see, depending on who the Tory leader is for the next general election, that will dictate as to whether the Tories end up with 150 seats or less than 100 seats. Once they're in the 150 seat bracket, then they are credible partners for reform in a coalition. But if below that, suddenly they're desperate.
And if Farage wanted Kemi Badenoch out as leader as his price of power, what sort of personality would he be looking for to replace her?
Somebody who he felt was genuinely conservative under his parameters.
But, I mean, this is the thing. You can love or hate Kemi Badenoch, but she is right-wing, isn't she? I mean, hasn't she shifted the party right since she became leader with, for example, a proposed benefit cuts of £50 billion, scrapping the net zero target, considering banning the burqa, saying on the BBC that all cultures are not equal, and there's one other one which is quite significant. Oh yes, tearing up the ECHR.
Well, you say tearing up the ECHR, that suggests that she, as a matter of principle, would be going into the Lord Chancellor's office, taking a piece of paper and actually ripping it to shreds because it's something she believes in. Well, she set up a commission to work out what the right thing to do was about the ECHR. And yes, there has been a decision that a Tory government would pull out of the ECHR, but she is not somebody who has a conviction about that sort of thing. She has no raft of policies that she's bringing forth from her own guts. She's doing it on a delicate step-by-step basis because she has no core principles of her own.
It sounds to me like you don't rate Kemi.
It sounds exactly right that I don't rate Kemi.
Now that's a bombshell. Why doesn't Graham Davis rate Kemi Badenoch? 6:33. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Graham Davis has advised some of the biggest names in politics. He is the presentation coach. He joins me live in the studio. And Graham, why don't you rate Kemi Badenoch?
Because she, since she was elected leader, has left the playing field open for reform to set the agenda, rather than being the agenda setter herself. They are the ones who've come up with policies that she has sometimes agreed with, sometimes responded to, sometimes imitated. But no party ever wins the next general election by following another party's agenda. It has to be the agenda setter. And Kemi Badenoch has not achieved that.
And it was therefore a very lucrative year for Nigel Farage, her first year as leader of the party, to co-opt all of that space vacated by the Tories.
Not only did he dominate the football pitch, the Conservative Party never got out of the dressing room.
Yeah, damning. And of course, they may pay the price in the long term. Do you fear for the future of the Conservative Party?
I still feel that the Conservative Party overall is something that can't be written off as an entity. It's been around for too long. It's been too determined and too good at rising like a phoenix from the ashes every single time that it's written off. With the right attitude, the right policies, and most importantly of all, with the right leader, it can triumph again.
Front page of the Sunday Telegraph, Burnham wins over Labour's ruling body. Starmer loyalists on Labour's ruling body are no longer prepared to block Andy Burnham's return to Parliament, according to the Sunday Telegraph. The PM previously counted on the support of members of the National Executive Committee to prevent the Manchester Mayor from becoming an MP earlier this year. But the mood has now changed on the 10-strong committee of NEC officers, and allies of Sir Keir Starmer are not willing to stand in Burnham's way anymore. So is the King of the North heading back to the House of Commons, Graham?
We have this image of Andy Burnham being the lost king in the North who's going to make a pilgrimage south. Well, I have to say to you, Mark, that there are at least 6 degrees of separation between Andy Burnham and 10 Downing Street. First of all, the idea that somebody would definitely step down. Now, I haven't heard any names mentioned. I mean, if you arrange it carefully, the job of being a backbench MP can be a very cushy number from which it is impossible to be sacked. So it's difficult to actually name an individual. Secondly, we're told that the mood has changed in the NEC. Again, I haven't heard any names mentioned who are definitely going to change their vote from the way that they voted when his candidacy for Gorton and Denton was blocked. So that's the second thing. Thirdly, even if he got through the NAC vote, he would still have to be selected by that individual constituency, and you can be damn sure that the Starmer faction would make sure that there was at least one candidate who could put up a jolly good fight against him. Fourthly, he has to actually win the by-election. Now, I don't think he would have won the Gorton and Denton by-election if he'd been the Labour Party candidate. Inevitably, the left-wing vote will be heavily contested by the Greens, and Reform will be looking for a storming victory to make up for the Hannah Campbell loss. So that's just to get into the House of Commons. And when he gets there, does he really expect that the party will coalesce around him as essentially a new boy? He's somebody who's lost 2 previous leadership elections very badly to Jeremy Corbyn, for instance, and he is somebody who doesn't necessarily have a following amongst the new intake. But there's an even bigger problem right at the start. In order for a by-election to be called, the chief whip of the ruling party has to move a by-election writ, which means that he has to ask for the agreement of the House of Commons to move that writ. Now, the chief whip of the Labour Party doesn't have to do it, although, of course, normally it is done within 3 months of the vacancy becoming available. I would have thought that the Prime Minister might say to the Labour chief whip, there's no hurry about this, is there?
Oh, no, of course.
And frankly, they could be left in limbo at the behest of the Prime Minister. Now, of course, that may sound very Machiavellian, but Keir Starmer is a very determined bloke.
He is. I think one can always underestimate Starmer at his peril, how stubborn he is, how ambitious he is, how ruthless he is, and he will cling on to power, which takes us to another story, and it is in regard to the Prime Minister, who has made it known to those around him that he will fight any leadership challenge. Keir Starmer will not quit the cabinet, quit if the cabinet tell him to, and he will fight any leadership election. That is from Kate Ferguson, friend of the show, political editor of The Sun on Sunday. Starmer's not going down without a fight.
There are thousands of rhinoceroses wandering around Central Africa, green with envy at the thickness of Keir Starmer's skin. He would have to be dragged out of 10 Downing Street because his fingernails would be dug into the carpet. He is a fighter. He may be clumsy as a Prime Minister, he may be insensitive, he may be careless, but as a political warrior, no one should underestimate him.
No, because notwithstanding the bad headlines around the Mandelson appointment, he seems to have weathered that storm. Damaged, yes, but, you know, down but not out.
At the end of the day, the bottom line is he is the leader of a party that got a massive parliamentary majority in July 2024, and that bottom line is something that people cannot forget.
Nigel Farage, if you want an early election, Rayner is the one. The leader of Reform UK has suggested, Graham Davis, that if Angela Rayner replaces Keir Starmer in number 10, there will be an economic crisis which may spark an early election. What say you?
Of course, if she is Prime Minister, she is also technically what is known as the First Lord of the Treasury. Now, if the First Lord of the Treasury can't keep abreast of her own tax affairs, she can't do the same for the country. So she would be an amazing target for both Farage and Badenoch.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, this is the problem. Any replacement of Starmer is going to be to the left politically. That involves more tax, more spend, more borrowing, something the economy can ill afford. And those Rolex-wearing financiers abroad, upon whose largesse we rely to keep the lights on, won't be happy.
The only way in which a new Labour Prime Minister would not involve a lurch to the left could possibly be if there was a streeting regime. But have you noticed that Wes Streeting seems to have disappeared for several weeks or months because there's a hint of him being too associated with Starmer, possibly being a chum of Mandelson, and he sort of let it be known that he won't resign for the cabinet for the purposes of doing a challenge, even though he has the numbers to do a challenge. He's got more than 81 supporters. And so he might join, in fact, I'm sure he will join any leadership contest, but he won't be the initiator. And that might count against him in the end.
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? Are we now in the perverse scenario, Graham, in which Starmer is the least bad option for Britain? It's a nice, easy one, isn't it?
He's the least unstable option for Britain. He's the least unstable target for his opponents as well. There's a sort of middling equilibrium about him. He could stumble ploddingly along to the next general election, conceivably, and we know that it would be almost like pulling the plug out of the sink, and you're worried that all the water would go out of the sink, the good stuff as well as the bad.
Well, listen, wise words, as always, from Graham Davis, the presentation coach, a man that has advised many of our prime ministers and ministers of this country. Neil says, good morning, Mark. From the rumours, Angela Rayner would struggle getting through the door of number 10. Of course, Dan Hodges at the Daily Mail newspaper reported that she was in the strangers bar of the House of Commons, completely drunk, stormed off, yelling at someone that I'm a socialist before walking into a door. I mean, Graham, great night out, but that's not a ringing endorsement, is it?
It isn't, although you do have to admire there's a certain style about that, because the accounts tend to suggest that she walked full bore into the door, sort of bounced off, bent over double, that then carried on. She's got a certain amount of chutzpah and style that may be needed.
Well, we'll have to discuss that in the next few minutes. I've got this from Amanda in London. Good morning, Mark. And good morning, Graham. Whatever has to be done to save the country from catastrophe must be done. Rupert and Ben Habib must get on board too. Amanda there suggesting that the right should unite. Julia in Mansfield. Good morning, Julia. How are you? Thank you for watching and listening to the show. Julia says, Mark, I think Nigel should do a deal with the devil. Anything to get the lefties out and keep them out forever. Good morning from Sophia. Good morning, Mark, and good morning, Graham. In the words of Private James Fraser from Dad's Army, we're doomed. Will Kemmy be leader in 3 years, asks Bill. Let's see. Or will the Conservatives, the Cons Libs, the so-called One Nation, take over the Tory party? Too many ifs at the moment, but I believe reform will do what's best for the country. Rachel says, good morning, Mark. If the right don't unite, we are all screwed. It is as simple as that. Can I ask you about that? Because Rachel there, somebody that's not happy with this Labour government, I would read between the lines to interpret. But she's saying if the right don't unite, we are all screwed. It strikes me that there are many Conservative voters who don't want the great to be the enemy of the good. And they don't want to sort of just have the purity of Reform UK if it means the other lot get in.
I've got a lot of sympathy with that point of view. But expecting the right to unite, Reform and Conservative to get together, is rather like expecting a recently divorced spouse to get back with the previous spouse, supposedly for the good of the family, but there are so many issues that preclude against that because of the personalities involved.
Absolutely fascinating. Well, I'm delighted to say that Graham Davis, the presentation coach, is going to stay with us. It is 6:47. This is Talk Breakfast. An almighty row has broken out between Carol Vorderman from Countdown and Nigel Farage. We've got the inside story. That's next.
Maddest direct.
Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
They sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:50, you're listening to Talk Breakfast. If you became Prime Minister, what would your first action be? Cliff has said, good morning, Mark. If I were Prime Minister, my first action would be to proscribe socialism. Cliff, I couldn't agree with you more. It's the wicked and failed idea that never dies. Kate says, good morning, Mark. Loving your obsession with the Wirral right now. 2 mentions in 2 days. Kate, on the Wirral. However, a Mancunian born and bred Didsbury before the estate agents moved in. Kate, thank you for your kind words and for listening. Tell Graham the problem with the Conservatives is that they're full of Liberal Democrat MPs. They won't get any Conservative policies through. That's Francis in Sussex. Hi Mark, says Joanna. Graham Davis is correct about Kemi Badenoch. Slow and considered, she was weighing up what was popular. Unlike Nigel Farage, who fired off what he knew the country needed by years of consideration and understanding. Hi Mark, Starmer isn't going anywhere. He's on the top stepping stone to take us back into the EU for his next job. And Vinny says, can you imagine Rayner with world leaders? We'll need a translator into the King's English. I think that's harsh but fair. Francis in Sussex, her text is interesting, that the Tories have too many Liberal Democrats in their ranks now, which is used, of course, Graham, as an insult. Why did the Conservative Party shift leftwards over the last decade?
It sort of goes back further than that. The leadership election in 2005 was quite a stark one because David Cameron became the young new blade of the future, overcoming the old-style establishment candidate David Davis. And actually in opposition, he was scrambling around a little bit for a unifying policy. Attacking bureaucracy in the NHS turned into a winner as they moved on towards 2010. But in fact, David Cameron was always a centrist. Despite being the young new blood, there was a hint of Lib Dem about him always. And so, of course, then the temptation to lurch towards the Liberal Democrats and form a coalition crystallised that move slightly towards the left to liberal conservatism. And from then on, it became almost priced into the share price of the Conservative Party.
Oh, that's interesting. And after 5 years of working with the Lib Dems, centrism became a habit.
It had infected the roots of the tree just a little bit too much.
And what really happened is that they lost touch with their core ideology, and perhaps they lost touch with the legacy of Thatcher.
Well, I've always thought that for the Conservative Party to be successful, it shouldn't necessarily be more right-wing. It certainly shouldn't be more left-wing.
Yeah.
It should definitely come out with a raft of policies that people can feel are genuinely conservative.
Right.
And that level of traditional conservatism is what I think your caller is lamenting quite rightly.
I completely agree. I mean, I sometimes think the reason why Nigel Farage is popular is that many millions of people simply want a right-wing government.
Yes, indeed. And he is the classic populist. He said, well, why are you calling me a populist? I'm just giving people what they want. Yes, indeed.
Full-fat conservatism. Call it what you like. It's what millions of people seem to crave.
Well, the David Cameron-infected Conservative Party became Tory light for far too long.
My goodness, powerful words. A quick word before we get to Ivor in Hampshire. Sunday Mirror, Countdown Carol says Farage's numbers don't add up. Maths genius urges people not to vote for reform. What do you make of this beef between R. Carol and Nigel Farage?
Well, Carol Vorderman is a classic celebrity who's never been elected to anything, but nevertheless has particular beefs that sound as if she's been elected to something.
She's elected herself.
Mind you, she does have a point about opinion polls, because you do the arithmetic. Wait a minute, there's about 30% that doesn't seem to be there, which is left in some sort of vacuum. I don't think we can really absolutely base any long-term views on an opinion poll at the moment, except this one, which I said earlier on, that probably Reform are safe in the sense that they won't go below about 26 or 27 points, but they have to bear in mind that they won't go above 30 points.
Powerful words. Ivor is in Hampshire. Good morning, Ivor. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. How are things in Hampshire? Has the sun risen yet?
No, it's a bit foggy here, but
yeah.
we're right down by the river, so...
Oh, lucky you. Nice part of the world. Well, Ivor, thank you for your call. Do you think Kemi and Nigel should do a deal to save Britain?
Well, if you go back to when Boris was Prime Minister, he asked Nigel to stand aside, and he did. and he promised he'd do the Brexit properly and a lot of other things, and they actually let him down so badly. You know, I don't think he would. I don't think it'd be worth doing unless Kemi Badenoch was to say, "Well, I'll stand aside for you this time," and I can't see that happening really.
Well, it's very interesting. Stay with us, Ivor. Nigel Farage has every right to have a grievance with the Tory party, having stood down candidates in 2019. He didn't get so much as a thank you, and he didn't get the robust Brexit deal that he was expecting.
Well, I never thought I'd say this about Nigel Farage. I think he was a bit naive to have done so in 2019. I'm certain that Johnson didn't promise him anything as a result of his very kind gesture not to compete against incumbent Tory MPs. And actually, for him to in some way think that Johnson would do the decent thing and be grateful for it, that was hopelessly naive of him.
Is it a credit to Farage that he did stand candidates down in 2019? He didn't really have skin in the game. It wasn't going to make him Prime Minister or necessarily even get him into the House of Commons, which of course it didn't. It was purely in the national interest. Does that tell us something about Farage?
It might do, but you could also argue that it was a gross miscalculation, because it meant that Boris Johnson was safe with a majority of 80 seats. He became very complacent as Prime Minister even before COVID kicked in, and it meant that we had a Prime Minister who took their eye off the ball when it came to net zero and immigration.
Ivor, do you think that Reform can win on their own?
I think they probably could, because if you think how awful the Conservatives have been for 14 years, no matter what Kemi Badenoch says, and like Graham's saying, all she's doing is copying Nigel. Every time he says something, the next few days she'll say the same thing. So I think the general public really just about had enough of Conservatives. So I don't think they're going to do that well. So I think they could take it, actually.
And Ivor, do you think there are lots of shy Reform voters out there, people that are going to back Nigel but won't tell the pollsters?
I think there probably is, actually, because I talk to some people, and they won't actually say who they're going to vote for, who they support, and I've got a feeling they would vote Reform.
Ivor, can I say it's been the highlight of the hour having you on the show. Please call me again soon.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
And have an excellent Sunday. Ivor in Hampshire there. The Tories should stand aside, not Reform. Let Reform save the country. What do you think about this? Should Nigel and Kemi do a deal? Interesting about those shy Reform voters, Graham, because I've got an old friend. She's a woke actress. She's as woke as she gets. And she's backing Reform at the next election.
Well, if Nigel wants to activate those shy Reform voters, he's got to fight for every seat.
There you go. Brilliant stuff. Well, we're fighting for Graham Davis because he's back for another 15 minutes. Lots more to come. Should those two do a deal? This is Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 7. Top of the morning, I'm Mark Dolan. Happy Sunday, one and all, and a happy bank holiday weekend. Talk breakfast, a very busy show to come. Dolan's dispatch coming at 9 a.m. I'll be looking at the runners and the riders for the Labour leadership. I won't be pulling my punches. That's Dolan's dispatch at 9 a.m. It might get me cancelled. Good. And breaking this morning, Starmer digs in with the Prime Minister, making it known he will not quit if the Cabinet tell him to do so, and he'll fight any leadership election. So is Starmer here to stay? Meanwhile, Andy Burnham has the approval of the Labour Party machine to re-enter Parliament. So is the King of the North heading for number 10? Nigel Farage says if you want an early election, vote for Angela Rayner, as he predicts financial meltdown if the ginger growler gets in. And with the political right in this country horribly divided, my question to you this morning is a simple one. Do Nigel and Kemi need to do a deal to save Britain? My phone number is 03444991000. The brilliant Solopay is taking your calls. She's owning it. A full switchboard yesterday. It's filling up now as we speak. Book your place on the show. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. Now, we're on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. You might be listening to us in bed. I'm very honoured to be in your bed. May I thank you for that privilege. Perhaps you're listening to this show in the car or in the kitchen, getting your first cup of tea going of the day. But I'm delighted to say that this is a TV show now as well, and you can watch the show, see my amazing guests, and watch Dolan's Dispatch. Head to Talk on YouTube. That's right, go to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. And Luke is directing our TV output today. So, Luke, give the camera a bit of a wobble if you can. Give it a shake. Look at that. Oh, my goodness, this guy has a command of the technology. Dean Spencer is the boss today and pressing the buttons. Birthday boy himself, Dave the engineer. There is an ugly tug of love at the moment going on between Talk Sport and Talk Breakfast for the services of Dave the engineer. I'm actually facing off Alan Brazil. Let me tell you, I'm winning. Talk Sport's great. It's not as good a place to work as Talk. You should see their kitchen. Yikes. It's like a haunted castle. Talk Sport kitchen. Do you know, they called the other day, actually, they got Rentokil in, right, for the Talk Sport had to call in Rentokil for their kitchen. And Rentokil said, no. They just walked away. They looked at it. They saw the half-drunk bottles of Budweiser in the fridge. They're like, we're not doing this. So, folks, keep it Talk all the way. This is the best show on the radio and on the telly. You won't find anything better anywhere else. 30,000 people watching us live now every Saturday and Sunday. That number's growing. We'll be on 100 in a year. I can't do it without you. What do you think? Do Nigel and Kemi need to do a deal to save Britain? 03444991000. Let's talk. Let's do so in the company of two very good friends of mine. Graham Davis is the presentation coach. He has advised many prime ministers of this country in the art and craft of political communication. And down the line, I'm delighted to say, former top cop and ex-military hero, Mike Neville. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mark.
I'd like to kick off with an almighty row, Mike and Graham, that's kicked off between Nigel Farage and Countdown star Carol Vorderman. Front page of the Sunday Mirror. Countdown Carol says Farage's numbers don't add up. Maths genius urges people not to vote for reform in the May elections. Mike Neville, do you think that tactical voting could dent reform's political revolution?
Yeah, absolutely. They've got to make friends. So Reform have got to get on with Rupert Lowe. They've got to go on with the Tories. The danger we face, of course, is an awful coalition of the Greens, Labour, Liberal Democrats, SNP, Plaid Cymru. What a disaster for this country it would be if they got in power. So when you're thinking of voting for somebody else, if you're thinking of voting, I'll vote for Rupert Lowe rather than Reform or the Tories, somehow they've got to come to some agreement, because the coalition of chaos that we could have if those awful parties get in would be a disaster.
And Mike, you are a student of human nature, which made you a very successful detective. Why do you think the millionaire-esque Carol Vorderman has such a problem with Nigel Farage, such a visceral hatred of him?
It's almost, I don't know, they call luxury beliefs, aren't they? The richer people get, the more daft they get, I think.
Yeah.
You get these, middle-class people voting Labour, I come from a council house in Bolton, and you can see, you live amongst these people, so you see the problems, but the richer people are, the more daft they get, I think, and that's the issue with Carol Vorderman.
And also what happens, Big Mike, is the wealthy people are insulated from the consequences of socialist policies.
Yeah, absolutely. But these beliefs and all these stupid things, you see it time and time again. I was reading about the American guy who made up that phrase, luxury beliefs, that his life, he'd been brought up in a single parent family. He went to university. All these people who were brought up by a good mum and dad who had good jobs, paid their taxes, they hated those things. Why would you hate those things? But it is, you've got too much money, first world problems, you start believing in idiotic things.
Graham Davis, why do people like Carol Vorderman have such a visceral hatred of Nigel Farage?
Well, I don't know Carol Vorderman, but Carol Vorderman appears to know me. When it became a matter of public record as to the fees that I was being paid for a certain amount of presentation coaching, she took a photograph from my website, put it out in a tweet and said, "This is what Rishi Sunak's presentation coach looks like," unsurprisingly. Now, I'm not sure what message she was trying to get across.
So she was referring to your appearance. Now, for
Indeed.
Those listening on the radio, Graham Davis is a good-looking man, you fine figure of a man, and you have a shaven head.
Indeed so.
OK, and you look terrific. Because, by the way, when men, and Mike, you'll agree with this, sometimes when men shave their hair off, right, there's two routes you go down. It's either William Hague or Bruce Willis. And I'm delighted to say that you are leaning into Bruce Willis.
I'm somewhere between Bruce Willis and Harry Hill.
I think there are echoes of Jason Statham about you this morning, and therefore, but no, you're a fine guy. But what she's trying to say, that you've got a shaven head, that what, you're far right or something.
I'm not sure. I was wearing a suit and tie. I think I looked like some sort of pillar of the Tory establishment, and I think there is
wasn't
something.
She trying to say that you're basically BNP? Let's call a spade a spade. She's like, this guy's got a shaven head. He's a far right thug.
I can't speculate much more beyond that word, unsurprisingly, but that's what she said. That's the black and white.
Was that not incredibly obnoxious, probably slightly libelous, and a very ugly prejudice?
I chose to laugh, and I chose to interpret it as her saying Graham is a very attractive bloke.
I want to hear what you think about this, because I actually think this has become the story. Carol Vorderman's treatment of Graham Davis online, that vile attack, Mike. And she says, here's a picture of Rishi Sunak's advisor, and unsurprisingly, this is what he looks like. What does that mean?
Well, they are. These people are prejudiced, aren't they? I mean, I've got my little tuft of hair, so I've not shaved all my hair off yet. My wife tries to keep these little bits of hair I've got growing, but these people are. They'll talk about stereotyping. They'll criticise people, and then they'll do exactly the same thing themselves. I think he looks. I think Graham looks lovely. I'm of a generation where he would be Kojak, to be honest. I mean, I'm an older guy, so definitely Kojak for me.
Can I say that Mike and I, Mark, are united in our hatred of all hairism everywhere?
Well, that's exactly right. But I mean, it demonstrates, though, it does demonstrate the extraordinary prejudice of people like Carol Vorderman, that she looks at a photograph of Graham Davis, he's got a shaven head, and she's like, oh, far right.
But they do. The trouble with these people is they'll say, be kind, be nice, and they're the most evil and intolerant people there are. They'll come out with phrases, they'll criticise. Imagine if you said something about a black guy, so look at him, but if you say that about a white man with a bald head, you can get away with it. It's just a nasty, horrible trait that these people have.
Well, to coin your genius phrase, Mike, these lefties,
they never sleep.
They never sleep.
They never sleep. They're always onto it all the time. Very wicked people.
Do you think in many ways what Carol Vorderman's trying to do, Mike, is slightly undemocratic by seeking to gerrymander the electoral system to keep Reform or the Tories out?
Yeah, they are. As I said, they never sleep. They're absolutely determined. They can see that the Conservatives, when the Conservatives were desperate and they dumb themselves down, becoming a sort of Labour light sort of thing. Now there's a real chance we have of having a right-wing, a centre-right government, which everybody, I think most people in this country vote for, and the left are absolutely determined to keep them out, and hence their vociferous attacks on Reform.
Sean Cooper has messaged the show, chaps, and said, I think Reform are being massively underpriced in the opinion polls. I think they would get around 34% of the vote if an election was held today. What do you think about that, Mike? Because we're discussing this morning, should Kemi and Nigel do a deal to save Britain? Do you think that would be necessary?
I actually do. I think that somehow the right-wing, centre-right parties have got to come together, particularly with Rupert Lowe as well. I think this argument between Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe, it could drift some people, even if it gets, say, 10% of the people voting for Rupert Lowe, we will end up with this awful coalition, as I've just said. And look how Labour got in with, they've got a massive majority with something like 33% of the vote. That's the danger that we face.
Would the personality, Graham, and character of Nigel Farage be a barrier to a deal on the right? Is he too much of a diva to stitch up a deal with Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe and Kemi Badenoch?
Let bygones be bygones. Let's forgive and forget. These are phrases that I've never heard coming out of Nigel's mouth. And I think that he has a certain syndrome. I wouldn't call it narcissism. I'd call it something else. Main character syndrome. He believes he's the central figure in every scene that he's in. And he may well be right. But unfortunately, when he takes it to the extreme, it means that when somebody gets high up and next to him, inevitably there will be a clash of personalities. And it's going to be very, very difficult to bring those people back into a Farage tent.
And Mike, you are in tune with many of our viewers and listeners in that on multiple occasions you've said to me on this show, first of all, the left never sleep, which is the best catchphrase I've ever heard. But the other thing that you always say, which I agree with, is we need the entire establishment wiped out. And is that possible if the Tories are in any kind of partnership with Reform?
Well, the establishment are there, aren't they? I think any deal that's done with the Tories, we've got to make a deal to say we're going to sort out these civil servants. It's almost like they'd be better getting rid of all of them, because if you keep them, they'll just be a drag anchor on you all the time. They'll just be holding things back. I think any deal that's made with Reform, they have to say we will personally look at every MP that the Tories are putting forward in certain constituencies. If the Tories are going to win that constituency, or got a good chance of, is that person, are they a Liberal Democrat in disguise? This is the problem with the Tories. If they are, then get rid of them. But I've got to say, the civil service, you've almost got to sack most of them and just work without them.
Mike Neville, Nigel Farage is a colossal political talent. I've worked with him. He's a very nice man. Is his ego a problem?
I suppose you don't get into that position if you haven't got that ego. But when you've got there, a good friend of mine says you've got to be able to work with sharp knives. You've got to be able to work with other people who are also talented. And as Graham has highlighted, if you just think all the time, I am the top person in the room, you have to realise who's my successor, who's going to go on. You've got to look at it. It's not for me. It's for the good of the country. And we need Nigel Farage for the good of this country. And Nigel Farage has got to think, who is the next person who's going to come after me?
Now, Graham, it's my understanding that you're off to the barbers.
I found, do you know, this morning I spent 10 minutes combing my hair and I forgot to bring it with me.
Exactly. That's a good line. So that's it. You're off to the barbers, and then you're going to a rally, of course, you know, and then you're going to wave a flag somewhere. Before we let you go, where do the right go from here?
You have to remember that now Nigel Farage has in his top team more members of the Rishi Sunak last cabinet than Kemi Badenoch has in her top team. He can't get away from the fact that essentially the Reform brand is that of Tories 2.0.
Yeah.
And to try and deny that is completely unrealistic. And so I think that the biggest achievement that he managed to perpetrate over the last few months was when he swallowed his genuine feelings, probably about the individual concerned, and sort of welcomed Robert Jenrick into his top team. He may well have to do an awful lot of pride swallowing in order to move forward.
My thanks to Graham Davis, the presentation coach. Graham, we will catch up very soon. Only 1 in 10 young people think it's important to keep the Falkland Islands. Meanwhile, a football fan has been ordered to get rid of his Union Jack flag by a Labour-run council because it's offensive to neighbours. That's right, the flag of this country. Those stories are next.
Director
Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
And they sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
Emma Lou!
with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's
Yeah.
got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Breaking this morning, Starmer digs in with the Prime Minister making it known he will not quit if the Cabinet tell him to, and he will fight any leadership election. We'll get reaction from a top journalist on that story at 7:45. But what about this? Only 1 in 10 young people think it's very important to keep the Falkland Islands. Let's get reaction from retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector and ex-military hero Mike Neville. Mike, why is that a problem that young people aren't fussed about the Falkland Islands?
Well, I suppose it goes to the educational system, Mark. So I joined the army in 1983, so it's just 1 year when I was 16. That was 1 year after the Falklands. And what you have is that young people today, their heads are filled with nonsense by teachers, and we can just see how they're likely to vote for the Greens or Labour. I don't remember at school. I was lucky. I got picked to go to a grammar school, and I don't remember any teacher professing any sort of political views at all.
No.
They just taught us history or geography, whatever the subject was. No, as we keep saying, the left never sleep. They're always onto it, and they know that young minds are easily manipulated. And what's important about that story, it tells us how young people have been manipulated, how they've been told that the British Empire is an evil thing, and they don't realise that 90%, 99% of the people in the Falklands want to be British. And my view was always, when I was like a soldier in Northern Ireland, that a friend in need is a friend indeed. So if those people in Ulster who wanted to be British, I was there for them. The soldiers and sailors who went to the Falkland Islands, they were there for the people of the Falkland people who wanted to be British. And I'm afraid that spirit of patriotism has been knocked out of young people.
Yes, there is such complacency now, isn't there, within the education system, in the media and political and corporate elite. We've been so smug and so self-satisfied for a long time, Mike, taking for granted a successful, relatively homogenous society, a sustainable growing economy, solid borders, and we gave all of that up. It feels like we had it too good for too long.
I think you're right. So I think 1989 is critical. When the Berlin Wall fell, and we thought that's right. You know, when I was a soldier in West Germany, as it was, that the threat all the time was the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union fell apart. All the Eastern Europe became democratic states. And you can see the Tory government then, they just gave up the armed forces. So we went from having 200,000 troops, soldiers, until now we've not got enough soldiers to fill Wembley Stadium, and it's all we've done it, we've won, and we didn't see all these other threats. And I think the left in particular, they've taken hold of the educational system and filled young people's minds full of nonsense.
And what we had in '89 was a very successful country with a strong military, a very, very powerful economy. We were an economic and diplomatic powerhouse. We didn't realise what we had was so precious, and various administrations have just relinquished that, Mike. They've torched that legacy.
They have torched it, and we have a situation now where you've got more young men on PIP and benefits than you have in the army. Those young men would benefit so much. I always think the army for me is not just about fighting capacity, it's about how you make society bind together. So those young men would be far better, you know, learning how to iron their kit, march around, be good soldiers, be disciplined, rather than just dossing around on some council estate. But what you've got to imagine is the left know if somebody joins the armed forces, they're far more likely to have conservative views. So it's better to keep them wickedly on PIP, on benefits, on a council house, in a council house, rather than in the armed forces. And we've really, the country is a complete mess at the moment.
Well, indeed, and we've given up the basic principles of how the country should be run. We've given up the idea, Mike, of a country that lives within its means, which is what households have to do. We've given up having a country where the rule of law has primacy. Look at shoplifting and antisocial behaviour. We've given up decency with women being harassed in the streets, dogs doing their poos, people spitting, littering, the fly tippers. And of course, we've given up the idea of border control.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it summed up to me. So when I was in West Germany, Germany was such an organised place, and I remember how decent and clean it was. And I went back about 10 years ago. I flew into Germany to advise the police there, and I went to Dortmund railway station, and there was some litter on the floor, and I thought, that litter on is something. Sometimes a small thing tells you an enormous amount about a country, and I could just see Germany in decline there. And it's not just Britain; it's all Western society is in decline. Mass immigration, we're allowing people to just commit crime. Just little things. You're on a train, somebody puts their feet on the seat. They're not thinking about the next person who sits there. All these little signs tell us that somehow we've got to get a grip in the West.
Can we ever go back to having a country like the one we had in the 80s? And Mike, before the latte lefties get carried away, I'm not talking about skin colour. Can we go back to a country that was coherent, decent, productive like we had in the 80s?
It will take an enormous effort. So, as we were discussing earlier, the establishment, for example, they're the same people. They're middle class, white. They've got these left-wing beliefs. If we're going to change the country, if reform could change the country, you have to get rid of those people. Get rid of those people. We can turn it around, but we cannot have a government where they're being advised, or the people at the top of the establishment have these middle-class, left-wing views. They've got to be flushed out.
Most definitely. Well, everything that's woke turns to you-know-what, as Donald Trump wisely said a few years ago. And it is that sort of leftist progressivism which has infiltrated, Mike, our political elite, the media, corporations, and obviously, most effusively, the public sector. How about this then? And I feel very sorry for this chap. And this is somebody that's had to take down their flag because apparently it's offensive. A football fan was ordered by council bosses to stop flying the Union flag on his balcony because it was offensive to his neighbours. David Gilley received a letter from the Labour-run council warning he could be breaching his tenancy contract unless he takes down the banner. At what point did our flag become a weapon, Mike?
No, it must be. It must be. If you look at the 60s and 70s, I suppose. What amazes me about, no matter how left-wing, say, the French are, no one in France objects to flying a French flag. Even in the States, the Democrats will fly a USA flag. It must be from the 70s, and they've tried all the time. These people are globalists, I suppose. And I mean, I think it was George Orwell who said that there's rich people, or the left. They'd rather steal from the poor box than sing "God Save the King," and that's back to the 30s. So I don't know, but. Southwark Council, are you surprised that they wanted rid of a St George's flag? That's just the way they are.
And we know, Mike, don't we, that this week a doom-laden press conference from the Bank of England following their decision to hold interest rates suggest that inflation could reach 6%. Food price inflation could go beyond that. And my friend at The Sun on Sunday, their political editor, Kate Ferguson, has a piece in the paper today. A majority of Brits think there will be widespread riots and lawlessness this summer. They're not wrong, are they? That's a real risk.
It is a risk. When the sun shines, the rioters come out. We used to call it PC rain. So the Notting Hill Carnival will always be more peaceful if PC rain came out. And the weather looks nice. The weather looks nice at the moment, doesn't it? And what you need all the time, it's like a tinderbox, isn't it? It's like the Southport with Axel Rudder-Cabana. All you need is some wicked, evil incident, and it's like that is the flame on top of the tinderbox. And I think people are just getting sick and tired of seeing the country run down, and there is a chance all the time of rioting.
Most definitely. And last but not least, we haven't spoken since the King addressed both houses of Congress in the United States. What did you make of his performance in America, Mike?
Do you know, I was really impressed. I haven't been impressed with King Charles. I've said to you before, I'm a Cromwellian supporter. I'm happy to put up with the royal family as long as they do. And Charles has come across sometimes as a bit woke, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But you know what? He did really well there. I think the speech, whoever wrote it for him, he came across as a sort of decent chap. But the humour and stuff, I think it got President Trump back on side. You can see I'm wearing my Kentucky Colonel badge. So I'm a great supporter of the United States, but well done to the King. He did for all the Starmer is obviously hated by Trump, but the president loves the King, and I think the King did so well for Britain when he went to the States.
Before I let you go, Mike, there are many on the political right who are struggling with the war in Iran. Are you holding the line on that one? Was it still the right thing to do?
We have to get rid of the regime in Iran. I think President Trump is absolutely right. I'm a firm supporter of Israel. We cannot have that threat where Iran might have nuclear weapons, who can seal off the Straits of Hormuz. People have probably never heard of the Straits of Hormuz, but without those being open, without the oil being able to flow down that strait, we're done for. And so we have to get a grip, and we have to sort out Iran.
Are you concerned about how Donald is running this war?
Yeah, I'm surprised, actually, that it sort of goes in waves, doesn't it? 1 minute there's some action, the next minute there's no action. Let's get the job done.
Most definitely. I agree with you, Mike. Listen, lovely to see you. Have an excellent Sunday with your missus. Enjoy the bank holiday. Go and have a pint. You've earned it. My thanks to the brilliant Mike Neville, a very good friend of mine, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, and the man who invented the phrase, the left never sleep. And he's absolutely right about that, which is why we must be vigilant. Why do I say that? Because I hate to tell you that socialism doesn't work. It's a nice idea, isn't it? Everyone gets a little plot of land and a milk delivery every week, and we're all on equal pay, and it's the land of milk and honey. It just never works out like that. It leads to death, murder, extortion, and poverty. That's why I'm not such a big fan. Folks, so much more to come. What do you think about this? Should Kemi and Nigel do a deal to save Britain? Your call's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, 30,000 people watch this show live every single weekend. That number is growing. We'll be on 100k in a year. We've got a massive audience in the northeast, and John is in Newcastle. Good morning, John.
Good morning. What I would like to talk about is the situation in this country. I'm 80-year-old, and I'm very saddened by the fact that we're in such a massive mess. Why is it that I needed a passport all these years to go abroad, when thousands of people have been allowed, under the Tories, under Labour, with the help of the Liberals, I suppose, you could say, coming into this country without a passport, coming into this country and causing havoc in a lot of cases. And, you know, we've just paid, I think it's around £650 million to the French government in order to help to stop illegal immigrants coming here. But it happened before. Some good months ago, we paid a great amount of money in again to the French government, and it was a one in, one out basis, where it took a while for one out to go. But on the second day it happened, there was over 1,000 came in. 1,000. So really it's a bit of a farce. I don't blame the French government. I don't blame France at all. They come here because we give the benefits of, you know, free hotels, 3 square meals a day, £38 spending money a week, so on and so forth. Don't blame anybody but ourselves, because they wouldn't want to come across here if you were offering them nothing. But these liars, thieves and traitors, who is Conservative, who is Labour and who is Liberal, have allowed it to happen. Overall, and so therefore it's pathetic. It's just not on. We can't love. We've got food banks where I live in Newcastle. We've got 6 food banks, our own people, and we can't even look after them. So how can we look after everybody else when we can't look after our own? And I do hope that the people of this country start waking up and get off their backsides and get away to vote. It's up to them what they vote, but to be honest, I'll never vote Conservative, Labour and Liberal in any case. I just don't vote. And a lot of people in this country are sick of they don't want to vote, so it's no good. We have to vote, and we have to get something better. That's what it is. It'll not be perfect, what we'll get, no doubt, but it's got to be better than this, because this is pathetic.
John, as brilliant as ever. I didn't need to interrupt you for a moment. You spoke with wisdom and conviction. Please call me again soon and have a good Sunday. There's John, by the way, who's got a few miles on the clock. He's 80 years of age. He still loves his country. He's horrified by what's happened to it. Why, for example, is border control now so controversial? Why is it right-wing to believe that the border is there for a reason? I still cannot process why people who enter the country illegally are not locked up. I don't mean torture people. I'm just saying that you enter the country illegally, we don't know who you are, you will be accommodated at His Majesty's pleasure and then returned to your country of origin. Make it make sense. John is in Crewe. Morning, John.
Yeah, good morning to you, Mark.
And now listen, John, I'm so glad you called, because we're having this conversation this morning. Should Kemi and Nigel do a deal to save Britain? What do you think?
Well, I've already had this conversation just before the election, when Ben Habib came up to Stafford, and my point to him was that it makes perfect sense not to agree on policy, because they're totally different. Obviously, the Conservatives are moving towards communism in many of the people that are in their party. But what I agreed would be, if you, for instance, take 30, maybe 50 seats, and you agree that you will stand down where perhaps the Conservatives do well in parts of London, and in the north, where Reform are particularly strong, the Conservatives agree that they will not put somebody up in those seats. The problem was, at that time, just before the election, the idea was very good, but what actually happened was the Conservatives called the election in for July 24. The reason they did so was to try to strangle Farage's party at birth. It was not to win, because they knew they would lose, but they decided if they could kill off the Reform Party at that election, their party would continue.
I agree with you, John. I agree with you. That surprise July election was called partly because the Tories knew that Reform were not ready.
Exactly right. They knew if they got no seats, then they would not have any future publicity or anything of that nature. And frankly, I never bet, but I did bet on Reform winning if they'd continued until the Christmas, which they could have done. But that cost me 20,000 in winnings, 800 to 1. The other point I'd like to make, though, it's too soon to decide on doing a deal with the Conservatives. You have to wait and see what the polls are showing before deciding. The other point, we keep hearing about a link-up with Rupert Lowe's party. The problem with Rupert Lowe's party, and I wish people would understand this, he's not shrewd enough, whereas Nigel Farage has the full experience. His job is to be elected.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to Rupert Lowe, two things he says. One is he believes MPs should be paid $500,000 a year. That would go down well with the electorate. I'm not arguing whether it's right or wrong, but that would straight away. And the other thing, he wanted to support Tommy Robinson. And many, many people support Tommy Robinson. I fully understand that. But it would be wonderful for the likes of the lefties in the BBC and Sky and ITV. They would immediately have something to portray them as racist, whatever it is. And it's fine being right or wrong, it doesn't matter, but you have to win the election. And Farage understands that far better. You cannot have somebody in an army who's the general, and you have the Lance Corporal going against him, saying we shouldn't attack at night, it should be daytime. You need the leader to make the policy, listen to all the arguments, but you cannot have somebody lower down undermining that leader, and that's what Rupert Lowe was doing. And that's my opinion anyway.
John, I think your assessment is brilliant, and I think what you're characterising Nigel Farage as is a pragmatist, a guy that understands you have to compromise to win, something that was understood by Mrs. Thatcher, who presided over a bit of a conservative coalition in the 80s, and Blair in the 2000s. I think you're right. I think that Farage lives in the real world. He knows that there are toxic issues that he needs to stay away from, and what he doesn't want is for the perfect to be the enemy of the good. John, brilliant call. Please call me again soon. Have an excellent Sunday. What about this from Peter on a voice note?
Good morning. I'm not so sure that Nigel Farage is right on this one, because if we had Angela Rayner in, people might actually see her as a relief from the problems Starmer has brought to this country and our people. They might just look at her and think, oh, well, she won't last long anyway, but she might just go on and on, because however left she isn't hated like Starmer is hated. And Starmer is hated by almost everybody in this country, including now his own voters, because they've all cleared off to the Green Party, haven't they? Starmer, he's done in 2 years what it took the Tories 14 years to do. Unbelievable, isn't it, that someone has probably got on their agenda that they're going to do as much damage to this country as they can before they leave. And I bet those people that voted not to have an inquiry into him last week, I bet they're regretting that now, aren't they? Because he said he's going to dig his heels in and stay where he is. Yeah, let all the old ginger minger whinger in, right? And I don't think this country will have an election. I really don't. They're too arrogant, Labour. They're too arrogant to call for any of it.
I do worry that they will use some kind of emergency to thwart our democracy. I think that is a concern. I suspect that what may happen is some kind of financial event, a meltdown, at which point we get an emergency budget, which will be undiluted socialism. That is a worry that I have. Peter, thank you for that. Anna has left a voice note.
Morning, Mark. Anna, sorry. Labour have little or no vote left. The Greens have half a dozen students, trans and the odd extreme Muslim, and the Lib Democrats aren't worth talking about. And the right are united. The fact that maybe Nigel and Kemi don't like each other is irrelevant because the right isn't them, the right is us. Millions of people out here, we are united. But I'm beginning to think, Mark, as probably the rest of those people, there's no point in entering into the political debate anymore because it doesn't work. It hasn't worked for us for 25 years. The country is in the pan, and that is due to politics.
Very good. And last but not least on this conversation about whether the right should unite, this is Nick.
Morning, Mark. It's Nick from Loughborough. Yes, of course, the right need to unite, and Farage will ultimately need to do a deal with Kemi Badenoch to prevent the possibility of another 5 years of a putrid socialist government which is continuing to wreck this country. But just as important as doing a deal with Kemi Badenoch, he and Rupert Lowe need to put their differences aside, and they should go down the pub, have a few pints of speckled hen and sort this issue out so that they also unite with Reform UK and Restore UK. Have a good day, Mark.
Thank you for that, Nick. What do you think, folks? Should Nigel and Kemi do a deal to save Britain? 7:47, this is Talk Breakfast.
Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
And they sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast, Mark Dolan, 7:51. Dolan's Dispatch coming at 9 a.m. on the runners and riders for the Labour leadership. But front page of the Sunday Mirror, an almighty row has broken out between Carol Vorderman and Nigel Farage. Countdown Carol says Farage's numbers don't add up. Maths genius urges people not to vote for reform. Here's a voice note on that very subject from Kevin.
Morning, Mark. Once again, both of us doing a shift, paying our taxes. Just a random one on our Carol Vorderman. I mean, I know several lefties, and even they think she's insane. She's quite scary that she's that mental. Yeah, she says, oh, the numbers don't add up. Oh, Reform have put their council tax up. Everyone's tax goes up every year. It's called inflation. But reforms have gone up less than 4%, 3.9 I think it is. The average Conservatives have gone up around 4.2, and I think Labour's is 4.4 or 4.5. Reforms have put theirs up the least. But they don't tell you that, do they? Because that would be going against their left-wing ideology. And of course, I do hope you're well. Speak to you later, mate.
Kevin, thank you for that, and a very, very powerful voice note indeed. You've spoken a lot of sense. Keep those calls coming. Should Kemi and Nigel do a deal to save Britain? 0344 499 1000. But breaking this morning, Starmer digs in with the Prime Minister making it known he will not quit if the Cabinet tell him to do so, and he will fight any leadership election. So is Starmer here to stay? Who better to ask than political commentator, broadcaster and columnist at the Conservative Woman website, Sean Walsh. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Very well. Great to have you on the show. So Starmer, he's not going down without a fight.
I've been saying this for about 7 or 8 months now. I noticed last year that people were starting to say that Starmer would go at a certain time. Initially, people were saying before Christmas, then it was New Year. And then the orthodox view settled that it would be after the May elections. And I said this is inaccurate because it's an inaccurate reading of the Starmer personality. Let me explain what I mean. Our constitution, if you like, the way we do things politically in this country is that when push comes to shove, if all other options have been exhausted, you can always embarrass or shame a Prime Minister out of office. You can always force their resignation somehow. That isn't going to work with this guy. Because this guy isn't a real person. This guy is a complex of algorithms. He's basically an android, and androids do not feel shame. We have been saying, or the political journalists have been saying for months, that Starmer is, politically speaking, a dead man walking, a zombie. Well, zombies aren't ashamed of being zombies, and zombies can walk on for as long as they can walk on.
Yeah.
So I suspect, I could be wrong, but I suspect that whatever happens next week, he will look at those elections and find sufficient room or sufficient levels of ambiguity for him to be able to argue that he should stay on, and he will feel no shame in doing so. That's just my view about that. I think that the Starmer personality is a kind of unholy trinity. And like all the best trinities, they're connected. He's an algorithm. He is pathologically dishonest. He's actually worse than a liar. He's a faker. And thirdly, and this may seem trivial, but I think it's important, he doesn't have a sense of humour. And people who lack a sense of humour are unable to recalibrate the way they look at the world. And I think basically Starmer just lives in a black box of process. And I don't see any reason why, even if he's asked by his cabinet, he would agree to stand down.
No self-reflection, no shame, no sense of humour, an algorithm of a Prime Minister. That doesn't end well for the country, does it, to have a personality type like that in number 10?
No. But we've got what we voted for. We've got what some of us, or I didn't, we got what some people voted for, and we have to accept that. I view it as now being, I mean, I don't know if you follow cricket, but I follow cricket all my life. I am used to England batting collapses, Mark. And there comes a point when you're watching an England batting collapse that it's so execrable and awful and painful to look at, you just want the whole thing to be over. So I think the logic of the political situation now is that we are heading towards some sort of crisis, probably of an economic sort, because whatever politicians say, the laws of mathematics are the laws of mathematics and the markets are the markets. But we are where we are, and I do not believe that even if it happens, even if it can be efficiently executed, a coup against Starmer is not going to make things any better. It might make things worse. I'm not interested in that. The fact of the matter for me is that Starmer is so awful and so dishonest that it is an affront to this country that he's Prime Minister, but I fear that he will be for a while yet.
To what extent is his training as a lawyer the reason why he defaults to obfuscation and lies?
Well, I don't want to traduce lawyers in general, but I think it's interesting with Starmer that the sort of law he obsesses about is bad law. It's internationalist law, it's abstract law, it's laws which deals with categories. And he has in place, largely thanks to the constitutional activism of Tony Blair, actually, he has in place judges and jurisprudence who will interpret treaty law, the law he loves so much, in ways which are sympathetic to his wider political...
And these are the sorts of laws ignored by most countries.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're worse than that. They are the sorts of laws which do not speak to the intricacies and the complexities of real human people. We have in this country a tradition of common law, which is, in a way, our national story. It's a series of disputes which have been adjudicated, often very eccentric ones between real people. That's a decent sort of law. The law that Starmer is obsessed with is deracinated. It's globalist. It hates the particular in favour of the universal, and I think human beings aren't set up like that. So to answer your question, I've gone all around the houses a bit there, sorry. But to answer your question, yes, it's a problem that Starmer is a lawyer, although I suspect he's not a very good lawyer in terms of thinking on his feet. But for perhaps slightly different reasons from you, I think he's a bad lawyer because he's the wrong sort of law that he's interested in.
Well, you've not gone around the houses. You've been very compelling in your assessment. Is there anyone among the runners and riders for the Labour leadership who have the calibre to rescue this Labour project?
No. What the country needs is a repeal of certain treaties. It needs a political class that, and I don't just restrict these criticisms to Labour, it needs a political class which is willing to reassert that we can do whatever we want if Parliament says we can do it. And I'm afraid we have a class of politicians from all parties who are all the same. I think it's interesting when we talk sometimes, Mark, about MPs and second jobs. My view about this is that MPs should have second jobs. And we should go back to the days when being the MP was the second job. They should all do something else. They should all do something else to connect with real people.
Something productive and something in the real world.
Yes, exactly, yeah. TV journalism, perhaps more of them should do that.
Sean, how can people find out more about your work?
Yeah, I'm at The Conservative Woman, The Critic, Country Squire, and I tweet at Sean_Walsh_1967. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you again, Mark. And happy birthday to Dave.
Oh, God bless you for shouting out our excellent engineer. Sean, look forward to our next on-air encounter. Political commentator and broadcaster. What an interesting conversation. More to come. This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 8. Wakey, wakey, rise and shine. Mark Dolan talk breakfast, and breaking this morning, Starmer digs in with the Prime Minister making it clear that he will not quit if the Cabinet tell him to do so, and he will fight any leadership election to the death. So a simple question this morning at 3 minutes past 8. Is Starmer here to stay? Meanwhile, Andy Burnham has the approval of the Labour Party machine to re-enter Parliament. Is the King of the North heading for number 10? Nigel Farage says if you want an early election, vote for Angela Rayner, as he predicts financial meltdown if the ginger growler gets in. And an almighty row has broken out between Countdown star Carol Vorderman and Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Countdown Carol says Farage's numbers don't add up. It's kicked off between these two big personalities. We've got the inside story. Where are you at on that? Because Carol does not like Reform. She doesn't like Nigel. Are you in Team Carol or Team Nigel? I think poor old Carol forgot her calculator when she recommended that we vote Labour at the last election. Even she regrets that now. And this is an important conversation I want to have this morning. With the political right in this country horribly divided, do Nigel and Kemi need to do a deal to save Britain? Because you've got to look at the alternative. A hellish left-wing rainbow coalition at the next election, made up of Labour, the Lib Dems, the SNP, Plaid Cymru, and the Green Party, led by Captain Cleavage himself, Zach Polanski. Be afraid, be very afraid. So if that's the alternative, do Nigel and Kemi have to do a deal to save Britain? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Dean, can we make some space in this hour for calls? What time are we going to do calls? 8:15. OK, 8:15. I'm putting you on the radio and on the telly. Sholape is taking your calls now. Do you want a deal or not? 0344 499 1000. Or here's another question. Can Nigel do it on his own? Does he need the Tories? Can Reform go all the way without any support from other parties? What do you think? Should Kemi and Nigel do a deal to save Britain? 0344 499 1000. Your calls in just 10 minutes' time. Now, you can text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can leave us a voice note as well. Birthday boy Dave Rhodes, our engineer, is going to get your voice notes on the radio and on the telly. I say that because we're on DAB+, in-app and online, but you can see the show as well. All you got to do is head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. And you can watch Dolan's Dispatch, see my amazing guests, and join the national conversation. So much to get through. As the saying goes, let's talk. And we'll kick off with the front pages. We start with the Sunday Express. Why the King was ready to help the country he loves. The King was determined to undertake his high-stakes US visit, despite criticism that it had become too political, as he grasped with both hands the chance to help repair the special relationship with America and the UK. It is flower power for beaming princess on big day. That is Princess Charlotte, whose birthday it was yesterday. Happy returns to her. Sunday Mirror, as I mentioned earlier, Countdown Carol says Farage's numbers don't add up. Maths genius, the Mirror are calling her, urges people not to vote Reform. Sunday Telegraph, Burnham wins over Labour's ruling body. And Badenoch, anti-Semitism has become acceptable at dinner parties. Meanwhile, fruit yogurts at risk in crackdown on junk food. Is nothing sacred? Are we not allowed a fruit yoghurt now? Can I not have a ski? Dave, do they still have ski? Am I showing my age? Yeah, Peter Barnes is nodding his head. You still have ski. I like that the Greek yoghurt's good. It's been strained, hasn't it? A bit like me. It's heavily strained. Anyway, fruit yoghurt. Have they gone back? They are fruit cakes, aren't they? Banning fruit yoghurt. It's good for you. Get your calcium and your fat. What is the world coming to? The Sun on Sunday, exclusive, sick joke, Britain's Got Talent star in video storm. And the Mail on Sunday, shocking corporation cover-up. Violent BBC presenter broke wrist. Shall I put my teeth back in? Luckily, Peter Barnes, this is not live. Violent BBC presenter broke wrist of female colleague. The BBC has been accused of a scandalous cover-up following claims of a presenter breaking the wrist, why can't I say wrist, of one of his female colleagues in a physical altercation. What is wrong with the stars of the BBC? Why can't they behave? What a bunch of wrongs. It's like an open prison, the corporation, isn't it? Sunday Times revealed £7 million income tax bill for Prince William, and ex-Marines now guarding schools and synagogues. For reaction to the big stories of the day, I'm delighted to welcome a very, very good friend of mine, political strategist, and a man who never sleeps because he's always doing his research. Peter Barnes. Hello, Pete.
Hi, Mark. How's it going?
I'm very well indeed. Starmer digs in. He's let it be known very publicly that if the Cabinet, if the men in grey suits come into number 10 saying the game's up, he will resist such efforts. He will fight to the death.
Yes. So I have a theory on this, if I'm being brutally honest. I don't think there's a single challenge to his leadership. I really don't, because I look at 3 instances. I look at the budget in 2025. I look at November just after it, when he did the U-turn on the budget, and there was an instant just in January as well where he used West Streeting as smoke and mirrors and a leadership challenge to cover up his own failing. It's an old McSweeney trick, this, where basically you cause loads of chaos, you make number 10 look like a clown show, and you actually are able to scoot kind of out of accountability of whatever it is that you don't want the public to pay attention to, like bad election results or like Peter Mandelson.
Is that what they call in the industry a dead cat bounce?
No, it's more of a bait and switch. So a dead cat is literally just change the conversation radically. You do it deliberately. This is more play the media, play everybody's biases against each other, and more importantly, keep your cabinet guessing. Because Starmer's not unaware that there is probably a challenge to him. There's no clean leader. That is his advantage. So he's causing more chaos, so therefore he could stay in power.
So a few months ago, number 10 invented this imaginary leadership bid from Wes Streeting.
Yes. Yeah, because he's seen as the right of the party, so they would probably stick with Starmer over Streeting. He's not exactly career shy, put it that way. And yeah, he's a very credible character for the public, so it's not unbelievable that he would do it. So what you do is you make it very clear that you have the allies. Have you noticed that phrase? Angela Rayner, allies. Keir Starmer, allies. That is people leaving briefing documents in front of lobby journalists. It happens all the time. I've done it myself. It is what we do. You cause lots of chaos, and therefore you use the media, your own side, because it's always in the Guardian, or it's always in the Independent or the Eye. Those 2 newspapers, or those 3, they all have it, and that's how you do it. That is exactly what he's doing. McSweeney was a pro at it, absolute pro. That's why what they call Better Together got away with all this nonsense, because there was so much of it. You don't actually know where to start, and you are able to kind of get away with the really bad bit and the really negative and harsh bit, because everybody's more focused on the thing that you're controlling, but yet they think you're not.
And McSweeney was Starmer's head of staff, chief of staff, until just recently, following the Peter Mandelson scandal. Before that, he was the great Svengali that helped Starmer win the election.
He put Labour back together. He really did. He put it from the ground up.
The strategy was to make sure that Starmer didn't say anything about any of his policies at any point.
Yeah.
That he was responsible for this laughable catchphrase of "my father was a toolmaker," which we laughed at, but we're not laughing now because it worked.
But exactly. You were laughing at it. You weren't actually noticing that he didn't say anything. Now he waltzed into number 10 and just decimated the country. That is the point of it. It's really clever. It's the worst type of politics, but it's very clever. It's very clever communications.
Have you seen a change in the operation of this government, or indeed of Starmer's approach, since McSweeney left? Has anything changed?
Yes. So basically, number 10 have gone into 2 modes. They have the kind of, we've got to deal with Mandelson, which is the legal side of things. So you split your communications department in 2. which they have done. They have 2 communication staff, 2 chiefs of staff. They have one to deal with the day-to-day, one to deal with the Mandelson stuff and all the kind of police and all that bit. That's very technical. You have certain specialists to do that. You then bring in, which he has done, is head of policy, and another Blairite from the Tony Blair Institute is also now back in the Starmer government running this show. It is absolutely plain as day. But you actually put the pieces together, either I'm much smarter than that lot, or they're pulling a fast one, and they're using the media and they're using people's anger against them.
So you think that Number 10 have confected this leadership putsch being planned on
I don't
Starmer?
think, maybe not confected it, maybe kind of overemphasized it.
Oversold it?
Yeah, oversold it, because if there is basically a kind of, oh, there's so many candidates, there's all this kind of, where they can't do it, this person said that about this, you make it very high school. You make it very kind of, they were caught sitting with that person. Do you not remember the story of Angela Rayner out with Andy Burnham in the newspapers? Not an accident, that was picked up. And this is unfortunately how Westminster works. Is why SW1 is rotten to the core.
So I think I might be able to paraphrase Kenneth Williams.
Yes.
From Carry On Cleo. And this is effectively what Starmer is saying. Infamy, infamy.
They've all got into infamy. Yes, 100%.
By the way, you notice we said that at exactly the same time in parallel.
Yes.
At that moment, we were almost like the Bee Gees.
Yeah, it's also quite funny because I'm literally writing an article on how last month was a Carry On movie.
This is a bit spooky.
A bit weaky, yeah. We have to spend less time together.
I can't have too much of Barnes in my life. So, okay, and then the next question is, so clearly, almost everyone in the House of Commons is ambitious.
Yes.
Almost all of them want to be Prime Minister.
Yeah.
That's what I learnt during A-level politics.
Oh, yeah.
Because just to become an MP is already, in many ways, an achievement.
You probably should be on a register, I imagine, if you want to be a Member of Parliament.
Most definitely. I always think that the perfect candidate for power is someone that doesn't want
100%, yeah.
But they never do. So my question to you, therefore, is, OK, so what Number 10 are doing is overselling the threat to Starmer's position in order to create the chaos and drama that keeps him in post. I hear you, and I think it's a valid theory. Next question, how much do Big Ange, Andy, Ed and the others want the job?
I think Ange definitely does. That's why she's on more manoeuvres than NATO. That's what I always say. Like, she's literally everywhere. She's briefing. She was offering jobs out when she was still Deputy Prime Minister at one point. So she is very obviously gunning for it. I think there's a lot of shyness come off her because of the tax problem, but also she's not got rid of the tax problem still. Now, that's not necessarily her fault, but she hasn't seemed to atone for it. She just doesn't talk about it. A lot of the kind of old Labour hands, the grey suits, they don't like that. The unions won't like that. The public won't like that. So the unions tend to think not Labour Party, they think public. Membership of the Labour Party think Labour Party. So this is the real difference. The unions tend to think, can these people get elected? The membership, they do who they like. So they have a real kind of split. It's very, very chaotic how the Labour Party select their leaders. It is literally pass the popcorn and anything can happen.
Big picture, therefore, do you think there's a solid chance that Starmer is still Prime Minister at Christmas?
I think, my guess, I think 75% he runs to the next election.
That is remarkable. And then higher than 75% that he survives to Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Because we could all see the writing, but he can't read. So, we see the writing on the wall. He has no idea what it says. It's the Boris Johnson problem. Everybody can know he can't go on. He believes he goes on because he is the better person. For him, this is a moral thing. For him to resign means he has to admit that he failed as a person, not in process. So, for that to happen, I just don't see it. With a man like him, he's got to be booted out.
Peter Barnes, live in the studio, is taking your calls. Do you want to speak to Peter Barnes? Then book your place on the show, 0344 499 1000. It's 8:16, it's Talk Breakfast. With the political right in this country divided, do Nigel and Kemi need to do a deal to save Britain? That's next.
Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Olivia Moore!
And they sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk breakfast, it is exactly 8:20 in the morning. Do Nigel and Kemi need to do a deal to save Britain? Here's a voice note from Eugenie.
Good morning, Mark. Eugenie from Bexhill-on-Sea. I think Nigel should do a deal with Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, not Kemi Badenoch. They have more policies in common. Super show, Mark.
Thank you, Eugenie. Anita is in Stafford. Good morning, Anita.
Hello, Mark, and it's lovely to speak to you.
You too. Thank you for the call. How's your Sunday morning going?
Well, actually, it's quite nice. It's raining outside, but I just felt impelled. I've never rung in a talk show before in my life, and I just felt compelled that I had to do it this morning. So thank you for having me on.
Well, I'm delighted you have. What do you think about all of this? Do the right need to unite? Do Kemi and Nigel need to do a deal?
Well, what we've got to do now is we've got to think about what's best for the country and not for personal agendas. It doesn't matter if you don't get on. What matters is that we have to unite to put this country back together. I think there's a lot of politicians out there, many politicians who are good, but they are the odd few that put their own personal agendas before what's good for the country. We haven't got the infrastructure anymore. We're just being overrun. I can't explain to you how angry and disappointed I feel about the country being run by a maniac. I hope I'm allowed to say that.
You can say anything you like, Anita. You can say anything that's true. I think that's my only line now. Is if we make stuff up and say Keir Starmer's got one leg, then I'll call it out. Otherwise, your opinion is valid, and millions agree with you, Anita.
I just feel as if I had to ring up and come on, people. What do you want? Get together. We've got to stop fighting amongst ourselves, fighting against what's this and what's that. What we need is a solid country. And these politicians, if we need change, real change, the politicians have got to stop thinking of their own personal agenda. They've got to stop fighting amongst themselves, and we've got to get this bigot out. Is horrible. I've seen some prime ministers, and I've lived under prime ministers. I've worked since I was 17 years old, and I have never seen a prime minister who has systematically ruined the country. And we need to stop it. And we need to join together to stop it. So people out there, please think about what's right for your country. Think about how we can unite to get this country back together. And if it means a coalition of the right, I'm all for it. I'd love to see Rupert Lowe do well. I really would. But the agenda has to be we unite. And if Nigel can't get in on his own, he needs to make deals. And he doesn't need to make deals to progress in their own personal political career. You seriously have to make deals now to save our country, regardless of how brutal those rules must be. We need to be safe. We need to have a country we can be proud of again. And I'm getting so emotional here because I'm so frustrated with the way that things are going. No one is safe. I don't feel safe anymore. And my grandchildren need a future. And as a former teacher, I'm teaching kids to have this wonderful career. And where's it going to be? I don't know. I really don't know. I could go on forever, but I know I've only got a certain amount of time, so thank you very much.
Well, we would love you to go on forever because you speak for so many people who feel, and stay with us, Anita, that actually, Peter Barnes, this is a national emergency. Anita touched on an important theme, which is national interest. And what all of these politicians have got to do is wind their neck in and understand what is at stake, which is the future of this great political project called the UK.
Yeah, I always say that the UK is currently at 1941 levels of absolute destitution. We are actually on our knees. There is no money left. Everything is collapsed all at the same time, all around us. That is why the Starmer government is failing. They were always going to fail because they have no idea what they're doing. We really do need to unite the right. The problem is, when you have started using the word patriot and betrayal, you have made that impossible. Because basically, you're not going to trust somebody you think's a traitor to the country. That narrative that the right has delighted in, attacking in the left, has started to turn inwards. And that is why everybody's at each other's throats. We've got to stop that language. If you want to unite, you have to accept that the Tories still exist. You have to accept that Rupert Lowe exists. You have to accept that Nigel Farage exists and Ben Habib and lots of different factions of the right. The great thing about the Conservative Party was the broad church, because it kept everybody together with a solid electoral machine that actually was able to win elections despite this country not voting mainly for right-wing policies. And that is the really important. But they were a container. They were not perfect. They messed up. I was in the room when they messed up. However, I do think Nigel has to get in the game. He's let the ball drop. 10 months ago, there was a poll. There was 34% ahead, 9 points ahead of the Tories. They had a 200-seat majority. Today, he's 78 seats short of a majority. That drop is not because of Rupert Lowe. It's not because, they somehow there's so much of the country against them. It's because they have been started to be judged as a potential government, and they are failing at that. I mean, one of the main voter bases has said at the local elections they want regeneration of the high street. Do you know what policy they have for that? Not a one. They actually said it was in a BBC article this morning, they will announce policies in due course. The election next week. Where is it? What have you been doing besides throwing fanfares and saying to Tory defections and delighting in the death of the Tories? That is self-interest, not putting the country first.
Anita, what do you think of Nigel Farage? Is he the man to put together a coalition that saves the country?
Well, he's got a better chance than a lot of people. He's no track record yet, so we need to find out what that is. But if he's our only option, then I'm going to have to go with that, because we need to get these people out. They're destroying the country. Now, I don't agree with a lot of Nigel, because I think sometimes he can turn and the policies don't become straight enough. But if we was to stop thinking about Nigel Farage as a politician and everybody else as a politician and worked towards just uniting and coming together, forget your personal agendas. Whether I like Nigel Farage or not is beside the point. It's about uniting politicians that care about the country and not about their own political agenda. And if you can do that, you've got my vote.
Anita, what a brilliant first call. Make me a promise and call again, because you spoke with conviction, you spoke from the heart, you spoke for millions. Anita, have a lovely Sunday and we will speak soon. I know that for sure. Brian is in the capital. Brian, you're worried about the Tories, aren't you?
Yeah, of course I am. The people that couldn't do anything with an 80-seat majority. I've got to say, well done, Anita. Get stuck in, girl. Now, I saw this on Unite the Right. You love this. And I wonder, why this again? And then Peter Barnes pops his head up again. And now I realise, because despite all his expertise, and he's been around the Commons and he knows it all, he works hard, he's the last man in England to think that the Conservative Party are conservative.
I don't, actually. I don't. I've openly said that they're not.
Well, why vote for them then?
Well, I don't. I'm not even a member of them. I left the Tory party. I just didn't join Reform. That's the difference. I also criticised Restore. I also criticised Ben Habib. I had a very public bust-up on talk with Ben Habib when he was at Reform. My problem is they're about to go into government with no plan. That's exactly the mess that we got ourselves into with Keir Starmer.
Okay, Brian?
We have got a plan. The plan is we're not going to vote for the Tories, OK? We're going to take our chances with everyone else but the Tories. And this thing about, they're a broad church. The Tories are a broad church. They're led by lefty gays, and they're emptying out. When I look at my ballot...
Jacob Rees-Mogg, also the top echelons of the Reform Party are basically the Tory party. So at what point have they become the same thing? You don't just change your, just because you change your tie colour doesn't mean you change your principles or your entire track record. You want to complain about small boats? Robert Jenrick sat in that cabinet. Yes, he resigned. He still sat there while the decision was made. He could have resigned earlier. He could have done something about it. He didn't. Suella Braverman talked a good game, didn't do anything. The same as Shabana Mahmood. They are exactly the same. I have no problem with Reform existing. I think there is a place for them. I actually think they're very important for the right of British politics. However, they've got to do something. You can't just say, they're not the Tories, therefore they're going to be better. That's just not how it works. We have got serious structural problems, and Nigel Farage openly said, I don't need to do my sums because nobody else does. He wanted to keep the two-child benefit cap. I mean...
Okay, Brian, over to you. What do you think about this?
Well, I think I can picture Peter now. I'm on the radio, so I can't see him, and I bet he's jumping around like he's...
he is. He's like a cat on a hot tin roof.
I know, and that's a tell.
It's not really. It's exasperation.
That is Brian. Let Brian speak.
Whoa. Give it a rest, will you? We have to listen to you. Just take a breath. Now, it's all right you keep pushing the Tories. We need this. When it comes to my ballot, I'm going to look at that ballot form, I'm going to think Tories can't be trusted. They couldn't do anything with an 80-seat majority.
Correct.
Get rid of them. They're the rattlers of politics. I'm going to look at Reform, and I'm going to think they've got the best chance. I'm going to look at Advance and the other.
Ben Habib, Restore, Rupert Lowe.
Yeah, well, we had Advance at the recent Manchester by-election, and they got 1%. So you've got Reform that have a chance, and the others that have been a 1% club.
Reform are the 1% club.
Well, Brian, where I agree with you is I think that if Reform win the election, then there will be the political will to change this country. And I think that's the difference between Farage and Kemi Badenoch. What do you think?
I just think Kemi Badenoch, what will happen is, she's never going to get in. She hasn't got the numbers. They've hemorrhaged so many people to common sense, right-wing, proper Conservatives that she's not going to get in. They're going to lose seats. Reform will stand everywhere in the Conservatives. They'll be down to enough people to see it in a phone box. Now, okay? Whether experts say otherwise, that is what's going to happen. And I don't. What happens is the same thing as usual. If there was a Conservative people in power, they will then get in touch with a big business, and the big business will say, "Oh, do you know what? Our universities, we've built lots and lots of tower blocks for foreign students. We need 400,000 foreign students, please. And do you know what? They can bring their families, because we're not really universities now.
Yeah.
Now we're letting agencies and migration.
And here we go again. And Brian, you're so right about that. I agree with every word. Really quickly, because the clock's against me, Brian. Can Nigel win on his own at the next election?
I can't see into the future. I mean, I could do a Peter Barnes and go, "Oh yeah, he's going to win. They're going to win. They're the best thing ever. Yeah, they're going to win."
Well, I would rather say the opposite.
Brian, that was a very good Peter Barnes impression.
That's all right. Thanks a lot, mate. Thank you for letting me have me say. Go on, Nigel. Smash it, mate.
Brian, call me again soon. I loved your company this morning. And Mike in Southampton. Mike, I've only got a few seconds. Big apologies, but you'd like to talk to Peter Barnes.
Yeah, Peter, listen, what you're saying, very interesting. I think you're excellent. Confuses me. The next election, Labour are going to get kicked into the dirt. How does that support Starmer, his support from his backbenchers? How's that going to affect what you've just been saying?
What have we been talking about for the last month and a half? The foregone conclusion that Reform are going to sweep it, Greens are going to come on the rise. This election is going to be the most boring thing ever, despite the absolutely historic rise of Reform, because we've been talking about it before it's even happened. That allows Starmer the manoeuvrability, particularly if it's actually the Greens that take the chunk out of him, which I actually suspect it will be, given London and given the way that they'll work in Wales and the way that the voting system will work in like local elections. This is the big question. It is not whether Reform win. It is who takes the bigger chunk out of the Labour Party defines who actually kicks him out of power.
Mike, with the clock against me, I'm giving you the last word, Michael. What do you think?
Well, I hope Nigel gets in. And the one thing I'm concerned about is that the way that we get lies off politicians. And I'd be interested to see if Peter thinks the politicians should be accountable when they lie to the British
Well,
public.
I think on that we can be united. And Mike, please call me again next time, because I'd like to further develop this conversation. But yes, calling out liars is something upon which we can all agree. Yes. I think we've got a Prime Minister who defaults to it. It's almost like Tourette's syndrome.
I don't think he's ever been in the same room as the truth. I generally don't.
I'm delighted to say that I've been in the same room. Thank you, Mike. Have a great Sunday. I've been in the same room as Peter Barnes. Peter, we love having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Fiery, potent,
yes, as
wise.
We should be. That is the right. That is the right.
And you've got a big problem now, which is you've got Brian, who does an excellent Peter Barnes impersonation.
Yes, that is rather spot on. I'm not going to lie.
There you go. Well, listen, that's whether it's a clone or the real thing, we're big fans of Peter Barnes. He'll be back soon. Lots more to come. Should Kemi and Nigel do a deal to save Britain? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A devastating blow for the Sussexes as Meghan Markle is dumped by the fashion event of the year, the Met Gala in New York. Let's get reaction from the brilliant royal biographer and journalist, the editor of Majesty magazine, Ingrid Seward. Good morning, Ingrid.
Good morning.
Ingrid, we'll get to the brilliant royal trip to the United States. A brilliant performance, not just from the King, but Camilla as well. But can we talk about the absence of the Duchess of Sussex from the Met Gala? That's going to sting.
Well, I read yesterday that she's just very disliked by the people that, hold the golden key to getting into the gala. And that's basically Anna Wintour. I think Anna Wintour did sort of give her the hand of friendship in the beginning, but she is as former editor of Vogue and now overall sort of champion of fashion. She runs the Met Gala as her own private party, I think, in a way. And if she doesn't want Meghan there, Meghan won't be there. And it is a blow because even if Meghan didn't want to go, she needs the kudos of being seen there, because that would really up her rate and make her, a proper person in the fashion world, because that's what she's trying to do when she sells her rather tacky clothes off the back of some visit she's doing, purporting to be a quasi-royal. And then everything she's wearing is for sale. I mean, it's a clever idea, but I don't think it's a very elegant idea.
No, and this will hurt the Duchess, won't it? Because she likes to think that she has connections in the fashion world. She, of course, attended Paris Fashion Week. As you said, she has ambitions in the world of fashion retail. This is an important project for her, and she's been thwarted at what is the biggest event of the year.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, we read that she's been thwarted. Maybe she never even wanted to go. But I absolutely agree with you. She needs to be seen there because it will give her the kudos to flog her own brand. And she's always been very interested in fashion. In fact, she is a very stylish dresser. But I thought the clothes that she was flogging off, wearing on their trip were actually pretty ordinary. And I don't think she looked very good in them. And I just feel it's just really wrong for her to be trying to sell her clothes off her back. I think that's, for anyone to do that, if fine. But if you're sort of purporting to be a royal princess, which, like it or not, she still is.
Yes.
I just think it's very tacky.
Yes, her strategy doesn't appear entirely coherent, does it? And I'm not sure who advised her to meet victims of the awful Bondi Beach atrocity and to sell those exact clothes that she was wearing whilst hugging victims on the internet minutes later.
Well, I very much understand that Meghan doesn't take advice. Meghan only does what Meghan wants. And she obviously either didn't think it through or didn't think it mattered. I don't think she would have taken any advice. Somebody might have given her that advice, but, she does what she wants, as we well know.
And is there a theme emerging here, Ingrid, of celebrities and important figures in the world of business and entertainment ditching the Sussexes? Because we know that Harry and Meghan were close, for example, to Elton John and David Furnish back in the day. Well, that seems to have gone cold. Lots of other celebrities, the Obamas, the Clooneys, Oprah Winfrey, Gwyneth Paltrow. It seems like this couple engage famous people and then lose them. I could also throw in the Kardashians, with whom they fell out last year over Kris Jenner's 70th birthday celebrations.
Absolutely. I think that Harry and Meghan, or particularly Meghan, let's say, feels that, these celebrities need her. They need her to give them a bit of burnish. And actually, of course, they don't need her at all. And the minute that she does something to irritate them, they dump her because they don't want to be seen to being attached to someone that's so undeniably unpopular, especially in Hollywood.
Well, yes, it really surprised me when her Netflix show was announced, With Love Meghan, Ingrid, that didn't feature a single household name celebrity. I mean, I expected Elton to turn up for a latte, or the Obamas or the Clooneys or whoever you like. Serena Williams, of course. There are plenty of others who were absolutely noticeably absent from that TV show. The only supposedly big name she had was a woman called Chrissy Teigen, who was a notorious internet troll.
I must say, I couldn't face watching all that. I mean, I did try and watch it, obviously, professionally, but it was just so nauseating. I just thought, this is just ridiculous.
I know, Ingrid. I know I know your body is a temple, but did it turn you to drink?
No, it didn't turn me to drink. But I just sort of thought, what is this all about? What is this woman trying to do? It's all so fake, and she just doesn't have that kind of warm personality that I feel that you need when you're trying to show people your cooking skills.
How do you think Charles and Camilla's trip to the United States will have gone down in Montecito, California? There were rumours from the royal journalist Rob Shooter that Harry didn't watch his father's speech to both houses of Congress. Any thoughts on how the Sussexes viewed that trip?
I really have to say I don't know how they viewed that trip. And as to Harry not watching his father's speech to Congress, I don't see how anyone would know that unless Harry told them. But I actually can't imagine that Harry probably would watch his father's speech to Congress, because it's a long time to concentrate, 20 minutes. I don't know. I mean, maybe he's just so annoyed with the whole issue. He just didn't take any of the trip in. I actually wish I could tell you I knew, but I don't know.
Well, that's right. We can't confirm Rob Shooter's exclusive from his Substack column. Although, are you suggesting that a 20-minute speech is a little bit of a stretch for Harry's intellect?
Well, I think to watch his father give probably one of the best speeches of his life to Congress, and Harry not even be anywhere near it, I just don't think it would be something he would want to watch.
We'll come to King Charles in just a moment. One final thought on the Sussexes. Where does their brand go from here? Because I would argue it's been a rather bumpy 2026 already so far. I think, in my view, Ingrid, the trip to Australia was an unmitigated disaster. Meghan called herself the most trolled person in the world. I'd argue she's the troll. And then Harry complained indirectly about Charles's parenting duties. They pitched up at a children's hospital and had selfies with cancer patients, and they were hugging members of the Bondi Beach, victims of Bondi Beach, whilst at the same time flogging their clothes online. So what do you think for the rest of the year for the Sussexes? Do you think that things can improve?
I think probably things have to improve for the Sussexes, but they didn't see this trip to Australia as a disaster. They saw it as a huge success. So we're batting on different teams all the time. I mean, they think they've done really well there. And they probably, Australia, I think, rather enjoyed them because they're a bit of a, Harry and Meghan, let's go and have a look and see what they're doing now, is the attitude. So I'm not sure about what the Sussexes will do, but apparently they're going to do more of these tours, because then Meghan, of course, can flog some more of her clothes.
Yikes. Well, let's stay on the positives now, Ingrid, because it was a pitch-perfect performance from King Charles, both addressing the two houses of Congress and also his speech at a White House dinner. And perhaps the unsung heroine of the whole trip, Queen Camilla.
Well, certainly you could see how the king relies on Queen Camilla. When he was giving his speech to Congress, I'm sure everyone that was interested probably noticed, well, after he'd finished and there was this huge rounds of applause, and he looked at her and she smiled at him. And I thought that was a very telling moment. She's always done that. She's always said, darling, you were wonderful. And basically, well, we all like that, but I think the king in particular loves a bit of flattery, and Camilla is his best friend as well as being his wife and his queen.
He's a very intelligent man, and he's a very principled man too, but he's an awkward character at times, and it seems that Camilla handles him perfectly.
I think that the Queen, the late Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, was sure that with Camilla by his side, he would manage to be a great king. I think it gave her a lot of satisfaction to see Camilla there. And that's why she actually said, Queen Consort, because, Camilla might well have been happier being Queen Consort rather than being an anointed queen, because it's an extra weight on her shoulders. And she's relatively new to this world. I mean, it sounds silly, but she is relatively
It's true, and she never craved being queen. It's just that she loved Charles.
Never did. No, and she wasn't born into it. She was 50 years old when she really came into the centre of the royal world. And, also she doesn't have the energy of the Windsors. I mean, we've seen what energy Charles has. And he bounces from one thing to the other, and apparently even on the plane over to Bermuda, he's reading his boxes. He is a workaholic with that Windsor energy. I always remember writing years ago that the Windsors don't walk anywhere, they run everywhere.
Well, we run when you're on the show, Ingrid, because we love having you on the programme. One of the finest journalists in the world on royal matters. Ingrid, have a good Sunday. We'll speak soon. Ingrid Seward, royal biographer and the editor of Majesty magazine. Lots more to come. There is the very real possibility that Ed Miliband, Mr. Net Zero, will be our next Chancellor of the Exchequer. I'll be speaking to a BBC Apprentice star about that next.
Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
And they sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
Emily!
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Ed Miliband is being tipped as Britain's next Chancellor of the Exchequer following the May local elections and a predicted reshuffle conducted by Keir Starmer as a reset for his government. What do you think of that? Chancellor of the Exchequer, Ed Miliband. Let's get reaction from someone that knows the real economy and the world of business intimately well. Apprentice star, broadcaster and entrepreneur, Lubna Farhan. Hello, Lubna.
Hello, it's Lubna Zaidi now because I'm a single parent, but that's all right.
Well, thank you for that. We will make that correction, and it's lovely to have you on the show. Therefore, you're a single parent. You're rather concerned about the future for your child. Do you think that Britain's prospects will be better under Chancellor Edmund?
Is that it doesn't really matter who's in the office because they will be inheriting the same economic issues, right? The economy is not doing great, and a lot of it isn't necessarily the fault of the Labour government. Of course, they've inherited a lot of issues. There's a lot going on around the world globally, etc. But I think the packaging may be different if there's a reshuffle. The item within the packaging will still be the same. So I feel like we don't need any more changes. If anything, we need a bit more certainty around things because there's already a lot of uncertainty around energy prices and what's going on in terms of the global conflicts. And any other changes within the government, although it will be a nice distraction for Keir Starmer, in reality, it's not going to do anything.
Do you think that the idea of replacing Starmer is a worry, given that whoever comes into number 10 will likely be more left-wing, which may mean more borrowing, more taxes and more spending?
Yeah, I think it is a concern because I feel that what we need in this country is stability, and we haven't seen that for a very, very long time. I feel that although we are distracted by politics, and of course that's important, the real news is the economy. It is doing very poorly, and even the spring forecast that the government issued, and I've read that on their website, I would say it's actually quite misleading because when I read the OBR's forecast, there's a massive difference between the government's press release, which is very positive, and they're quoting things like households are going to be £1,000 better off, etc. But actually, if you read the OBR's report, it's very doom and gloom. And I'm not sure whether your viewers know this, and this may have been missed. So, of course, we had the drama on 26th November, the error, where the chair had to resign of the OBR.
Yes.
Then also what's happened since is that there has been a change in the Charter for Budget Responsibility. And this was passed into law on 24th February. This update to the Charter removes the requirement that OBR forecasts be accompanied by assessments of the extent to which fiscal policy has delivered or is likely to deliver the fiscal mandate. Now that, to me, does not give me assurance of the direction of the economy. And I feel like actually they're trying to cover up a lot of what's happening in terms of the economy. The forecasts are very bad. UK public sector debt as a share of GDP has almost tripled over the past 2 decades. Cost of servicing this debt has increased sharply from 39 billion to 106 billion. And OBR's own forecast, the long-term fiscal outlook, is also challenging. And they're talking about how debt could rise and reach to 275% of GDP by 2070. I mean, if you actually read the report, and I appreciate that most viewers would not have time to read a 131-page report, but even if you read the executive summary, it is very shocking. It's very concerning. They're also speaking about how unemployment rate is likely to increase from 4.75% to 5.3%. Now, I'm sorry, but this country right now is a mess. And I appreciate, like I said, that it's not all the fault of the Labour government, but they have not made things better. And constant reshuffles just shows that they don't know what they're doing, right? So I don't care much about the packaging. I'm more interested in the results. And so far, everything that they've done has made the country worse off, not better off. So I'm very concerned, generally speaking. I don't even care who's in the office. Like, just get the job done, do it competently. But they've proven time and time again that they're just very short term. They're just more concerned about holding their office and their seat than actually the long-term view. And this is the issue right now in this country, sadly.
Most definitely. And I think you know as well as I do, and most of our viewers and listeners, that we need a country that lives within its means. That's what every household has to do. That would involve cutting public spending, trying to get taxes down in order to spark economic growth, which equates to national income. I get it. You get it. Our viewers and listeners get it, Lubna, and the government do not. Just thinking as a parallel, imagining if this country was a business, well, it would be a business in trouble, wouldn't it? With the rise, as you mentioned, in unemployment, with red tape, the return of inflation, high borrowing costs, massive debt. You know, we would be in trouble if we were a company, wouldn't we?
We already are, and to be fair, if we would be a company, we would have been liquidated by now.
Wow.
Right? We wouldn't even be existing right now. So I think that the times are troubling, and the economy. There's no hope I see from reading all the reports in the Bank of England. The inflation rates likely to increase as well. And I appreciate, like I said, a lot of this is because of the global crisis, not necessarily in control of anyone within this country. However, every move that the government has made, although they may have good intentions, in reality, what the public is feeling is we're still feeling a pinch in our pockets. And, you know, it's great saying, oh, you know, households are going to be £1,000 better off. And they're quoting the OBR, but actually they're not quoting the OBR when the OBR is very, they're actually saying that the economy is doing quite bad. So I just do find it quite misleading, the government's press release on the 3rd March. And all I could also say is, and some of your viewers may not be aware of this, but the Renters' Rights Bill changes from 1st May is also very troubling. So before, you can, if you don't have a job and if you don't have a guarantor, you could pay rent in advance and secure a property. But now, essentially, if you don't have a job and you don't have a guarantor, you can't do that. That option to pay rent up front is no longer there. And now this is troubling because if unemployment is going to increase even more and there are so many people renting, then their ability to rent out or move is going to be they're going to be immobilized, essentially. So not enough people are speaking about this. So I feel that although there's a lot of wins in the Renters' Rights Bill, and I appreciate they're trying to improve things, etc., but there's so much that the government hasn't thought about in terms of the policy, and it's going to cause more issues. And so I just feel like, I don't know, it's just constantly trying to keep up with all the changes and stuff. Yeah.
Lubna, brilliant conversation. We'll speak soon. Lubna Zaidi, this is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
3 minutes past 9, Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you for a very busy hour. Happy Sunday, one and all. Happy bank holiday as well. Bit of housekeeping. I'm back in the hot seat tomorrow at 1 p.m. in for the brilliant Ian Collins. But breaking this morning, Starmer digs in with the Prime Minister making it clear he will not quit if the Cabinet tell him to do so, and he will fight any leadership election to the death. So, is Starmer here to stay? I'll get the views of the former editor of the Sunday Express, the brilliant David Wooding. Meanwhile, Andy Burnham has the approval of the Labour Party machine to re-enter Parliament via a by-election. So is the King of the North heading for number 10? Nigel Farage says if you want an early election, vote for Angela Rayner, as he predicts financial meltdown if the ginger growler gets in. And an almighty row has broken out between Nigel Farage and Carol Vorderman, former star of Channel 4's Countdown. Countdown Carol says Farage's numbers don't add up. Maths genius urges people not to vote reform. So it's Farage versus Vorderman. We've got the inside story. Not sure about Carol's calculation there. Sorry, love. And with the political right in this country horribly divided, do Nigel and Kemi need to do a deal to save Britain? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. You can hear us on the radio, of course, DAB+, in-app and online. Sholape is taking your calls this morning. And directing our TV output is the excellent Luke. If you want to see the show and watch Dolan's Dispatch, head over to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. As always, at this time, on breakfast every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, it's Dolan's Dispatch. What we have in the runners and riders lining up to replace Keir Starmer is the illusion of choice. Potentially Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Wes Streeting, those are the people we're being offered. But each and every one of those names is simply two cheeks of the same backside. They are all signed up to the doomed economic and political philosophy of socialism, the failed idea that never dies. Andy Burnham, who rather arrogantly thinks that he can be parachuted into a safe Labour seat. Sorry, Andy, there's no such thing anymore. And he's talking about breaking the strict fiscal rules in order to borrow more money. He wants a wealth tax, which has never worked anywhere and which will see even more economically productive people flee the country. He wants a council tax re-evaluation. You know what that means? It means the council tax goes up. He wants a land value tax. He wants to nationalise water, energy, the utilities, rail and anything else that moves. He wants to rejoin the European Union. Of course he does. Only someone economically illiterate should wish to spend over £20 billion a year for the dubious benefit of joining a dying economic bloc. But hey, that's socialism. Big Andy is even thinking about proportional representation, which would likely condemn Britain to left-wing coalitions for the rest of time. What about Wes Streeting? Well, he wants an EU customs union, which means no more trade deals. He would crank up capital gains tax, again, a war on wealth creators. It's all tax and spend. Angela Rayner, Big Ange, the ginger growler herself. Once she's sobered up from a drunken night in the House of Commons, she'll double down on her ruinous workers' rights policies, which are sending businesses to the wall and which are reawakening the old enemy of unemployment. Big Ange will receive the backing of the trade unions. And mark my words, if she gets into number 10, they will expect their pound of flesh. And after swigging a few mojitos in the Downing Street flat, she will give them everything they want. Red Ed Miliband will be our first net zero Prime Minister if he gets in. he will sign the death knell for our industrial economy and will guarantee high energy costs for this country for the foreseeable future. BP, don't forget. Have you heard of BP? One of the biggest companies in the country are already planning to withdraw entirely from the North Sea. You couldn't make it up. Now, I'm all for green renewables and an energy mix, no problem. But Ed Miliband's net zero madness of not drilling for oil on our own shores is the equivalent of having steak in the fridge whilst your kids go hungry. There is no choice here, folks. It's just a question of which flavour and dosage of socialism you would like to have. It's like being asked which of your limbs you could live without. None of the options are desirable. It's a wild dystopian joke that the provably dishonest and incompetent Keir Starmer is probably, wait for it, the least bad option for the country. Even Wes Streeting, who is allegedly on the right of the party, will have to offer a progressive policy platform if he's going to secure the keys to number 10. Because if you want to lead this modern Labour Party, you must profess your love of socialism, because a failure to do so would be like a church being asked to select a priest who doesn't believe in God. Heavens above, Britain is on the road to hell. May God help us. 0344 499 1000. Your reaction. Harry is in Worcester. Top of the morning, Harry.
Morning.
I'm not happy about any of these runners and riders. I think it's different flavours of the same thing, socialism.
I don't know about that, Mark, but I've called in to talk to you about people who don't vote.
Well, that's another big problem. And that's one of the reasons why Labour did so well at the last election, was turnout.
Yeah. Now, everyone who is on the electoral register, whether they like it or not, in an election, they vote. Because by not voting, you are losing a vote to your preferred party and giving it away to the opposition. So all those people who say, I can't be bothered to vote, and I haven't voted in the past and I'll never vote, they have voted. And it's just a point to let them know that, to get out and vote.
Well, that's critical to our democracy, isn't it? Harry, in Australia, it's the law, you have to vote. Would you support a policy like that?
Yes. Absolutely, yeah.
And how do you see the next election playing out? Because we've been discussing whether Kemi and Nigel should do a deal to save the country. Do you think that Reform, for example, can win outright on their own?
I don't know. I know that Restore, if they keep growing the way they are, they will be a problem for Reform, but I don't think they should run if they are a problem, because they will basically be handing the vote to Labour, because they're taking away Reform votes.
Harry, what a brilliant point. And I think it's really important that we have that conversation about the importance of actually getting into that polling booth. Harry, have a good one. We'll speak soon. Pete is in Sussex. Morning, Pete.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well indeed. And I want to have this conversation with you about whether Kemi and Nigel need to do a deal to save the country. Will it be necessary? Does Nigel need any help?
I don't believe so, if I was to be perfectly honest. I think the help from either Ben or Rupert or Kemi will be pretty limited. And I think people are going to be extremely, or they're still fed up with the Tories, to be quite honest with you. But I would raise one point. I telephoned for when Peter was on earlier.
Yeah.
He mentioned that Reform are just Tories. This is not true. It's true to say that their previous employer was Tories, but their new employer is Reform. So they have to work to their team.
Well, you're so right about that, Pete. I mean, if I am a, I don't know, midfielder at Tottenham, and then I go and join Arsenal, well, then I'm gunning for the Gunners, aren't I?
It's true, and the reason they're employed, and if you notice the MPs that are with Nigel, they're all very professional at their job, and they know their way around Parliament. And that is so important.
Well, this is a big thing. This is a big thing. And I took a call earlier, and it was a brilliant call. And the gentleman who I spoke to, Pete, he said Nigel Farage is a realist, and he knows that he has to compromise slightly in order to win. What is the point in being like Jeremy Corbyn, ideologically pure but never achieving power?
I totally agree. Ideology is one thing, and it's great that Nigel is steadfast in his ideology about Britain. However, you've got to have the right people in place to do the job. And to do that, you must have the most professional people around.
Pete, what would you say to some, though? What would you say to some? So what would you say to some who do not want Tories anywhere near power?
I think there's still a massive learning curve for the Conservatives. Years ago, I was a Conservative supporter, but I lost faith in the Conservatives a long time ago. But I'm a Reform member now, so I kind of know what's going on in the background as well. And when I say going back, I don't know in detail, but I do know the policies and what they are about. And it's about truth and honesty. And if nobody employed by Reform conforms to that policy, they will be out.
I totally agree. It's going to be Nigel's way or the highway. Pete, what a brilliant call. Please call me again soon. Lovely conversation. Have a good Sunday in Sussex. Big John is in Scunthorpe. Hey, John.
Hello, Mark.
Was I too hard on Starmer and the Labour Party in the Dolan's dispatch? Because many would argue that they inherited a mess, they've got a big majority and a mandate to improve the country.
No, I don't think it's too hard. Starmer's useless. He couldn't even... Lee Anderson was right. He couldn't even lie straight in bed.
Is he not doing his best to improve the country? Did he inherit a mess? Is that a reasonable excuse?
I mean, he's an excuse for so long. All he's doing is lining his own pockets, and he's just hiding behind everybody else.
John, we've got a Labour government probably for 2.5, 3 years.
That's not a great thing to think about, that, is it?
It's a bit scary. Do you think an improvement do you think that if they were to change leader, that things could get better for the country?
It's just putting another clown in to run the Billy Smart circus.
Wow, that's damning. John, is there anyone you like the look of on the Labour front bench?
No, they're in now.
I tell you something, John, I think that your lack of enthusiasm for this project is shared by many. John, have an excellent Sunday. Thank you so much for your call. What do we think about this? A deal between Nigel and Kemi? Carl's not happy about this. Quick voice note if we can.
Hi, Mark. Carl in Bury. The right don't need to get together and unite. Reform are doing well. They don't need to start making pacts before any election. Basically, all they need to do is go to the election, and if they then don't have a majority, then you look at the situation. But to do it before the election would undermine the party, in my opinion, would undermine everything that they've aimed for in the last 2 years. I think the biggest problem is the tiny little parties like Advance and Restore need to stop being so ridiculous and need to step down, because there's no way they're ever going to be running the country, and they know it. So everybody just needs to be realistic, and we need to vote Reform. Cheers.
Thank you so much for that, Carl. Do Nigel and Kemi need to do a deal to save Britain? And is Starmer here to stay? I'll be asking the former editor of the Sunday Express live in the studio next.
Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Should Kemi and Nigel do a deal to save Britain? Here is a voice note from Adam. Take a listen.
Hi Mark, Adam from Bournemouth. Should the right unite? Well, if it comes to it, I think they'll have no choice. If that's the only option on the table, if Reform can't win it outright. But my hope is that Reform can win an outright and we won't need help from the other parties. But if they do, then of course they have no choice. We have to keep this lefty loonies out. Anyway, mate, great show. Keep up the good fight.
Thank you, Adam. Well, breaking this morning at 9:20, Starmer digs in with the Prime Minister, making it known to the press he will not quit if the Cabinet tell him to do so, and he will fight any leadership election to the death. So, is Starmer here to stay? Who better to ask than the former editor of the Sunday Express and now Sun columnist David Wooding. Good morning, David.
Morning, Mark.
Well, Starmer is a man who's very ambitious. He's quite stubborn and quite ruthless. He won't go down without a fight.
No, he's desperate to cling on. But frankly, he's a little bit delusional because at the moment we're only talking about what if, because on Thursday and on Friday morning we will know the elections take place. And if Labour get an absolute pounding, which is predicted, losing, say, 1,500 seats, 1,850 seats, the level of anger, not only among MPs, but among all those councillors, the rank and file of the Labour Party, who've worked hard for some time, losing their seats because of what's going on in Downing Street. It'll be palpable. And the likelihood is that some of the senior, I'm not sure whether Wes Streeting or Angela Rayner will throw their hats into the ring, because nobody wants to strike first on the grounds that he who brandishes the knife never wears the crown.
Yeah.
So it'll take a little group of people like, say, David Lammy, John Healey, a few senior cabinet ministers to go in to Number 10 and say, look, boss, the game's up. Why don't you leave at the next party conference in the autumn, go on a tour of Britain, do your legacy bit while we have a leadership campaign, stand down as leader of the Labour Party, stay on as Prime Minister, go and see the King in the autumn, and leave with dignity. I think that's what they'll probably say. If he doesn't do that, then the next salute is somebody's going to throw their hat in the ring and mount a challenge. Wes Streeting already has the 81 MPs backing him. He probably doesn't have the strength of support in the country among the Labour grassroots to do it. But nevertheless, once somebody triggers it, that's it, I think.
A devastating rout at the local elections has been priced in. It's long predicted. Does that help the Prime Minister at all, that it won't be a surprise when things go badly?
Well, I think everybody knows it's been a bad couple of years for the Prime Minister. I mean, he hasn't really achieved very much. He keeps talking about breakfast clubs, which is hardly an election-winning policy. And we've had we're just still in the throes of the Mandelson scandal, which has been going on since the back end of last year. So everybody knows he's not been a winner, and he's been mired in scandals and U-turns galore. We've had about 20 reversals of policy, and they can't go on like this for another 3 years to the next election. So it's quite clear he will not lead them into the next election. It's just when they change leadership so that they can have somebody to bed in and maybe achieve something before the next election.
Well, that's right. It's interesting when you mention his achievements so far, and you mentioned breakfast clubs. The other things that he trumpets are his lack of support for the war in Iran. Well, it's my understanding that it was a cabinet revolt
that prevented America using air bases to refuel, but suddenly he's owned it that he blocked this support. And then the other policy that he's so proud of is lifting millions of children out of poverty by removing the two-child benefit cap, a policy that he opposed before the election and said was unaffordable.
Yes, and
so his best policies are things he didn't want to do.
And everything is also clashing.
That's
as well.
amazing.
I mean, you look at the defence decision not to go into the war in Iran. He couldn't go into the war in Iran, one, because he dithered. He actually did nothing. That's what he did in that.
And there was talk of a cabinet revolt.
And Ed Miliband was the one calling all the shots, telling him not to do it. The Prime Minister in all but name, as he's seen. And then, of course, he had no ships or armed forces at his disposal to do anything. So his hands were tied anyway. So by doing nothing, he basically says that's one of his achievements.
What you know of the personality and character of the Prime Minister, is he the sort of person that might surprise all of us on Friday morning and announce the timeline for his departure? Is that conceivable based upon the Starmer you know?
Well, in due of the pushback we've just had from him in the last few days, I can't see that he will do it on Friday. But I think things will start moving pretty much over that weekend. People will start talking to each other, and a plan will be mooted for somebody to go in and talk to him if the defeat is as big as we.
But I wonder whether he's going to be more of the Gordon Brown tenacious type, because it was interesting, wasn't it, in 2010 when Gordon Brown, who knows a spreadsheet as a former Chancellor of the Exchequer, it was quite clear the numbers didn't add up in 2010 after that election. But he was holed up, wasn't he, at number 10, yelling at the people around him that somehow a deal can be made. It was just fantasy mathematics. And I just wonder whether Starmer is more of that ilk, because it's interesting that when Johnson knew the writing was on the wall, he actually walked away quite swiftly. He said, when the herd moves, it moves. Yeah. So he didn't actually cling on, really, Boris. And also Cameron didn't cling on after the Brexit referendum result either. He was straight out. I just wonder whether Starmer's different.
Well, whether he'll be a squatter in Downing Street, as Gordon Brown was deemed to have been, it's very difficult to call at the moment. But certainly you don't normally get knifings in the back among the Labour Party. They don't have regicide in their DNA in the way that the Conservatives do. So that's why he's managed to limp on so long. I reckon if this had been a Conservative Prime Minister going through what Keir Starmer's been through, he wouldn't still be here.
I think that Freebie-gate and the winter fuel allowance would have been halfway out the door.
He would have been gone long before now if he'd been a Conservative Prime Minister. But unusually for the Labour Party, you're seeing people openly talking, or their allies talking openly about mounting a challenge, and the Labour MPs in Westminster are just in dismay about the state of the party, the parliamentary party and the government.
So what is your prediction about where we stand now? The Prime Minister will make a statement or a speech on Friday morning about how voters aren't happy, we hear you, you want change, it's not fast enough, we're going to double down, working people. We'll get all the cliches, won't we? We'll get Keir Starmer bingo. Yep. We will fix the foundations of the economy. We might smash a couple of gangs. So how much time does he have left, do you think?
A lot depends on the 3 or 4 possible candidates. Now, Wes Streeting has got the 81 MPs to mount a challenge, but he doesn't want to be the first person to go. Angela Rayner has been doing a lot of manoeuvring. She's doing talks galore, but she's still got this HMRC tax scandal behind her, and she needs to get that cleared up. So really, a lot depends on Andy Burnham coming back. Now, there's a story around this morning in the Sunday Telegraph which says that the NEC has now changed its mind slightly, and there's enough people there who will back him to stand in a seat, and there are no ends of seats where people are ready to step down.
Well, yeah, what are the circumstances under which a sitting MP would relinquish their seat for a figure like Burnham? What would be in it for them?
Well, if he becomes Prime Minister, he could probably promise them a peerage or a knighthood or a damehood or something like that. I mean, Mary Rimmer in St Helens is close to the sort of southwest Lancashire area where Andy Burnham was brought up. And so that would be a good seat for him. She's in St Helens North, I think it is, and she's getting on a little bit, and she might stand down. There are a few others who have been suggested of people who might do so.
It's my view, David, looking at the balance sheet of the country, that whoever is Prime Minister, their hands are tied. We saw that actually quite a long time ago under Liz Truss, that it's actually the international bond markets that decide in the end whether or not you can tax more and spend more. So if we get a new Prime Minister and it's Prime Minister Miliband, Rayner, Burnham or Streeting, will anything change?
Well, there's already suggestions that the bond market will be unhappy if Rachel Reeves were removed as Chancellor. Now, that is something that has been mooted as an idea for the Prime Minister to survive, to throw another person under the bus, i.e. he is Chancellor.
But she's been a brake on more spending and more borrowing, hasn't she?
Absolutely, yes. So if she was removed, that would be serious for the bond markets. Yeah, that would be a really bad move. And, of course, democratically elected politicians will say, well, who decides who gets these offices of state? It's us, not you. But nevertheless, it would cause a bit of a flurry if she were removed at this stage.
An almighty row has broken out between Carol Vorderman and Nigel Farage. Front page of the Sunday Mirror, David. Countdown Carol says Farage's numbers don't add up. Maths genius urges people not to vote reform. Let's take a voice note on this from Grumpy Pensioner.
Morning, Mark. Grumpy Pensioner. So, Carol Vorderman, she's saying that Nigel's numbers don't add up. So, by contrasting, is she actually saying that Rachel Reeves' numbers are adding up? Yeah? So, the borrowing and that all makes sense to Carol Vorderman, does it?
Nicely done, Dave the engineer, the birthday boy, with a nice production touch there. It's an interesting row that's broken out between Carol Vorderman and Nigel Farage. Nigel needs to take the threat of Vorderman seriously, because she's somebody that will seek to orchestrate a tactical voting campaign at the next election to keep Farage out of number 10.
Absolutely, and the Mirror are hell-bent on stopping Farage. That seems to be their mantra at the moment. Stop Farage at all costs, and that's why you're seeing these sort of headlines in the Mirror, because they don't want Farage in power. The problem for the Mirror is that a lot of the people who are going to Reform UK are former Labour voters who say they're all as bad on each other. You know, we had the Tories for 14 years. We've got Labour in finally, and look what's happened. It's been even worse for 2 years. So yeah, I think Nigel Farage might fix it, and that's what a lot of Labour working class voters, the sort of people who buy the Mirror, are thinking.
Well, that's why it's brilliant to have a total Fleet Street legend like yourself in the studio, because it's possible that the circulation of the Mirror could increase if they lent into Farage.
Well, it possibly could, yes. I mean, it seems to be slavishly backing Labour. It's not flirted with anybody else ever. I mean, I've worked for papers of different colours over the years. The Sun, for example, has backed Labour and Conservative at different times and has never been afraid to attack Labour while it's backing Labour, or to attack the Tories while it's backing the Tories. In other words, it's been a very critical supporter. What it puts first is its readers, rather than putting forward the party which it alleges to support.
Got a very interesting voice note, David, from Sean on a wealth tax, which is the brainchild of Andy Burnham if he gets into number 10. Take it away.
Morning, Mark. Sean of Cheshire. Just heard you say there he wants a wealth tax. Wealth tax? We've already got wealth tax. It's called income tax. And then VAT, they're wealth taxes. We're being taxed to death. I think we should start having we need our own Boston Tea Party. Anyway, happy Bank Holiday Sunday.
What a great idea. Thank you, Sean. Happy Bank Holiday Sunday to you as well. With the right horribly divided, do Kemi and Nigel need to do a deal to save Britain? David Wooding and your calls next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A call from Anita earlier in Stafford, worried about the state of the country. She wants the right to unite. Zoe says, good morning, Mark. What a lovely, passionate lady Anita is. Listen to her, Britain. We need to take back our country from the radical left agenda. This from Debbie. Starmer keeps talking about breakfast clubs, while us who have to pay school dinners are now being charged $3.25 a day, and we have less in our pockets than benefits street. Debbie, thank you for that important message. It is a scandal. Good morning, says Paul. Everyone Starmer backs goes eventually. The fact that he's backed himself speaks volumes. Dave says, Mark, please stop calling Andy Burnham the King of the North. There's more to the North than Manchester. Hashtag not my king. Simon in Essex, on reform, making a pact with the Tories. I think we should, on one condition: no concessions to the Tories. We'll then see how much the Tories want to save the country. Georgina in Cambridge, Mark, the only bonus I can see if Ed Miliband becomes Chancellor is he will no longer be in charge of energy and net zero. From Pete, don't you get it, Mark? Isn't Rachel from Accounts an economist? Why would Miliband be given such an important role? Perhaps the PM needs to keep certain people on side. Dean and Ealing, well done for having Lubna on. Great guest. Get to more of your thoughts. With me in the studio, the brilliant Sun columnist and former editor of the Sunday Express, David Wooding. And on the line, Robert in Hertfordshire. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Mark. In short, really, I don't think that a pact with Nigel and the Tories would be a good idea, because I think the Tories are finished. What needs to happen is the remaining cream of the crop at the Tories need to leave, and they need to join a more right-wing party. Now, the trouble with Rupert Lowe and Nigel, and to a certain extent Ben Habib, they are narcissists, and they need to. More importantly, they need to get together to unite. The Tories, no, I think they're a busted flush. However, there is 3 or 4 really good politicians, Kemi, involved. Going back onto the royal family, I've lost a lot of respect for the king, because if he loved this country, he would dissolve Parliament straight away. Because I tell you what, we are not gonna survive another 2 or 3 years until the next election. Look, we've got a minority being stabbed to death on the street.
Yeah.
You know, we've got Starmer won't even stand up to the the marches. This country is on the precipice, and I think, really and truly, I think it's gone too far. And I don't condone violence, but I think only revolution will solve this problem. Bloody revolution. I don't want to see that, but it's heading that way.
Well, Robert, I certainly agree with you. I hope it's not bloody, but I do agree with you, Robert, about the R word, which is revolution. I agree we need an economic, societal and political revolution. Thank you for that, Robert. Mary in Hemel Hempstead. Mary, the clock's against us, but what are your thoughts about a deal between Kemi and Nigel to save Britain?
It's too early, but I must say, I mean, who knows? We might have been bombed by an Iranian nuclear bomb by the time of the next election and not even be here. But the point is that there are some Conservatives that I wish would go to reform, because I see reform as what was once the Conservative Party. People like Ian Duncan Smith, Mark Francois, they are true Conservatives, and I do wish that they would go over.
Mary, thank you for a brilliant call. Let's speak at length in the near future. Have a good Sunday, Mary. David Wooding, so much to process there. Your reaction to what you've just heard from our audience?
Well, yes, it's clear that people are disillusioned with the Conservative Party. What I would say is that the Conservative Party is a broad church in the same way the Labour Party is. It's got the soft right and the hard right, and it's trying to keep that party together. And the fact that it's splintered and fractured is what's part of the problem. I think Kemi Badenoch is doing a rather good job now. At the start, people were saying, well, she can't be seen. I think she's starting to cut through a little bit. I know we're 2 years, 3 years away from an election, and people are still disillusioned with the party. She's got to mend the brand, but she is looking quite tough as a leader, saying all the right things and doing the right things. She won't do a deal with Nigel Farage, and Nigel Farage doesn't want to do a deal with her. But as we get closer to an election, maybe the reality will force them into that sort of a pact.
Well, I think that Nigel Farage is more realistic and more pragmatic than people realise.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is why this week, when he spoke to the Telegraph and he was asked about a coalition after the election, he said, "We'll see," which definitely leaves the door open to some kind of deal. This is a leader of Reform UK who's welcomed some prominent Conservatives into the party, a man that's rejected the Tommy Robinson sort of quota of votes. He's actually a very pragmatic politician, isn't he?
Absolutely. And if, as the polls show at this moment, Reform is the largest party, but not enough to be a government, and the other option is Labour teaming up with the Greens, the Lib Dems, the Scottish Nationalists and the Welsh Nationalists to form a coalition of the left, then the Conservatives and Reform will have no choice really but to form a pact to take charge of the government.
I think it's a very fascinating conversation, isn't it? Do you think that Reform have enough to win on their own?
At the moment, no. If they get some momentum, yes. But the problem is we don't know what the hurdles, pitfalls and potholes are that lie between here and 2029. Of course, there may be scandals emerging among some of the candidates. It'll be very difficult to get 650 great candidates. They're going to have their policies scrutinised. So it's a real tough job to get into government. So many have slipped twixt cup and lip.
Oh, isn't that well put?
Yes.
So tell me about benefits.
Benefits. Well, the Conservatives want to close a benefits loophole. Now, there's a benefits cap whereby you cannot, if you get a selection, a myriad of benefits, there's a cap on what the total is you can claim. Unfortunately, there's a loophole in this. If that one member of your family is on PIP, the PIP, the invalidity benefit, as it used to be called, then the cap doesn't apply to that household. So if you've got one disabled person and a couple of others in the family, none of whom are working, they can claim quite a lot of money. And what the Conservatives want to do is to remove that loophole. It costs over £1 billion. And it's quite an interesting thing because there's about 4.5 million people who are working and are earning less after they pay tax than some people who are on benefits. And that's what the Conservatives are trying to remove to make it more worthwhile to work, because for some people they'd just be better at giving up work and going on the benefits.
Well, it's exactly like that message I received, isn't it, David, from Debbie. Starmer keeps talking about breakfast clubs, while us who have to pay for school dinners are being charged $3.25 a day, and we have less in our pockets than benefits street. By the way, I just had a glance at the calendar yesterday, and I was reminded of the fact that next week and Thursday is the deadline for any further defections to Reform UK. And I expected a few more big names to cross the metaphorical floor. Do you think we may get some news early in the week? Because Nigel was clear, if you're coming over to Reform from the Tories or Labour, it has to be by May.
Well, that is interesting. It may well be he's got one up his sleeve. I suspect nobody's going to sort of run as the deadline approaches. If there is one, it will be just before the deadline.
Yeah.
The other problem for Nigel Farage is he doesn't want to be seen as a haven for defected Tories. He wants to see himself as a unique brand, but he does need some of the ideas, the experience, and the pizzazz of some of the big weight Tories, and Robert Jenrick has given him a bit of that.
Yes, I mean, are there one or two scalps he might fancy for next week? Maybe Katie Lamb or somebody like that?
Yeah, Katie Lamb. But I think Katie Lamb sees herself as a possible future Conservative leader even. So she might well want to stay in there and see if she can build from within. We'll see.
yogurt. Do you eat yogurt, David?
Occasionally, yeah.
Because you're very lean, aren't you? You've obviously, your body's a temple.
That's my gut, you see. You have to talk about the gut.
What you have is a very an excellent body mass index, isn't it? Right? I think you might be Britain's only healthy journalist.
No,
you're getting there.
The young ones are really, really healthy.
Oh yeah, that's the problem.
Part of my problem was I was on the road for many years as a reporter and always behind the wheel of a car, so I could never drink much when I was out.
No, well, you're lucky. Yeah. Your liver will thank you.
Yeah.
Well, what is this scandal about the yogurts?
Well, there's a crackdown on obesity, and it's all about trying to stop junk foods, people buying junk foods, and so they're putting taxes on foods which carry high content of sugar, high content of fat. And there's one of the yogurt manufacturers has found out that they're going to tax them if they've got fruit in them. So it's a thing called fruit sugars. So it's natural, but if the fruit is pureed or mashed inside the yogurt, then it's counted as high in sugar content, even though it's not sugar in the spoon and stirred up. So therefore, only natural plain yogurt, which many people find a bit dull. I quite like it on a bit of fruit in the morning for breakfast myself, but that's going to be taxed highly. So there's a bit of a backlash going on there among the yogurt manufacturers.
Utter madness.
Utter madness, yes. You're milking this one.
Nicely done. You can take the man out of Fleet Street. David, a quick word, a bit more of a serious note to end on. I've got it the wrong way around, cheek by backside. But let's just have a quick word on Jeremy Corbyn, because here we go again with the left refusing to allow Jewish people to have crimes against them acknowledged.
Absolutely. And this morning, there's three former Labour people who have complained about Keir Starmer's handling of it. Lord Austin, Lady Berger, and Margaret Hodge.
Luciana Berger, by the way, a woman that was effectively hounded out of her own party.
Office, yeah, they've all now got together and complained, because they were three people who had left the Labour Party or complained or stood against Jeremy Corbyn when he was Labour leader. Incidentally, there was a tweet by Jeremy Corbyn I saw last night talking about the Golders Green attacks, and he says, but nobody seems to mention the knife attack on a Muslim person. The media have ignored this. Well, I didn't even know about this, so I looked it up, and it turns out it was a Muslim chap who had an argument with a friend of his and pulled a knife on him. Absolutely nothing, no link at all with religious hatred or targeting him because he was a Muslim. It was just a spat of some kind. And, I suppose loads of Christians get knifed as well, not because they're Christians, because they just happen to be Christians. So the people who are obsessed with this anti-Semitic, and people who are anti-Semitic or are obsessed with this Palestine issue, clearly can't help themselves, and Jeremy Corbyn still can't help himself. Why did he have to bring that up? What about her at its finest?
A complete non-story, as you've unearthed, and it's the left who worry about misinformation. Well, that was a very misleading post on X, was it not?
Absolutely. And of course, it was a big pile-on by all the typical hard left saying, nobody mentions the Muslims when they get stabbed and all this, and other people calling him out for what he was, thankfully.
David, really looking forward to reading you in The Sun newspaper this week. David Wooding, leader writer and columnist at The Sun, former editor of The Sunday Express. We'll catch up soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Lots more to come. We're going to be talking about the biggest show on TV. What is that? And we're going to clean up your voice notes and calls on whether Kemi and Nigel should do a deal to save Britain. This is Talk Breakfast.
Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Olivia Moore! And they sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Let's catch up on some of your lovely voice notes. Should Reform and the Tories do a deal to save the country? And what about Tories going over to Reform? Do we have a problem with these defectors? Here's a voice note from Mike.
Morning, Mark. I've no problem with Tories joining Reform as long as they agree with the policies. Nigel could interview them, make sure they're on course with all of the Reform policies. Don't see a problem with that.
Very interesting. Let's take another voice note, this time from Elle, who is very fond of Nigel Farage.
Morning, Mark. You're actually my favourite. I listen to you all the time.
Thank you, darling.
Regarding Nigel Farage, I've supported him for years. I'm UKIP, Brexit Party, the lot. I actually voted Conservative on his instruction. And then look what happened there. Now, I think what I would really love is for him and Rupert Lowe to bang their heads together and realise what's coming up. I feel so bad that Ben Habib is no longer in the party as well. So I would like those three to form a coalition, but they won't. They're two. I think the only thing that can do, I think Jenrick's all right. I can't stand Nadine Zahawi for reasons about the vaccine. I think Kemi should go across and join Reform. People will follow Kemi because actually she's the only one in the Conservatives that speaks any sense. So she could just go join them but not form a coalition.
Elle, thank you for that and your kind words. I agree with you about the vaccine, by the way. I've got no problem with people having it, but lots of healthy people had it during COVID. Given that it didn't stop the spread or indeed getting the illness, and if you were healthy, I don't understand why you would take that risk. Just my opinion, especially young people. But there you go. Let's get a last voice note, and this is from Rob.
Good morning, Mark. Yeah, regarding Reform, I think they're going to win on their own. I don't think they're going to need any help from the Tories, to be honest, because nearly everybody I speak to and, are voting for Reform. So there's only one party that are going to sort this country out, and that is Reform. Restore and Advance don't stand a chance of winning. They don't have the numbers and never will. Thank you, Mark. Bye.
Rob, thank you so much, Rob. And thanks to everyone watching and listening, your calls, your voice notes, your company this morning. I'm back at 1 p.m. tomorrow looking after Ian Collins' show for 3 hours. So do join me then. Quite interesting, isn't it? Arguably, the biggest show on TV now is the BBC show The Traitors, with an impressive all-star lineup. Let's get the details. And the brilliant entertainment journalist, Ethan Sills. Hi, Ethan.
Morning, Mark.
Really good to see you. Yeah, The Traitors is a big hit for the BBC. It's a massive show now.
Well, yeah, it was got the finale last year with Celebrity Traitors got 15 million viewers, which is practically unheard of these days. Yeah. And looking at even the civilian version earlier this year, that was around 12 million average across the 3-4 weeks. So this really has become the BBC's biggest hit by quite a long way.
Well, indeed, because it's very entertaining, it's very dramatic, it's well produced, and it's got an excellent presenter in Claudia Winkleman. Can you tell us about some of the big names that are in this forthcoming series, Ethan?
Well, yeah, I think it's quite a comedian-heavy lineup that's coming through this year. You've got Miranda Hart, you've got Joe Lycett, Joanne McNally, James Acaster, Rob Beckett, Robin Nathan. Like, I think after Alan Carr won last year, that's really set the stage for quite, for the comedians to try and make their mark and see if they can follow his leadership and his success. I think it's going to be a bit tricky for the comedians, given that Ellen sort of sailed through all the way to the finale, and then, managed to pull the wool over everyone's eyes in that castle. So I think those comedians are going to have quite a big target on their back coming into this new season.
Well, that's right. People will be watching out for the comedians. You've got the model Jerry Hall.
Yeah.
Any other big names that really sort of stand out to you?
Well, I think the person who I think I'm most intrigued to see is actually Julie Hesmanholst, who played Haley on Coronation Street for, good 20 years. I just saw her in a West End play that she ended up winning an Olivier Award for, and I feel like if she becomes a traitor, I think that sort of northern charm, I think she would end up dominating the series.
Is there any way, Ethan, that being on the Traitors can damage your reputation because you have to be a good liar and slightly evil to win?
Well, I think Alan Carr has sort of become he cemented his national treasure status by winning last year. I think it kind of depends how well you come across, what sort of performance you want to put on. I mean, Celia Emery, this grand dame of acting legend, ended up farting and screaming into a well in the last season. I don't think that really damaged her. I think that made her more beloved. I don't know. I don't think any of the celebrities last year came across particularly badly. I think the big thing is probably for those younger stars that are sort of coming in, the sort of content creators. They've got to get those involved now if you want to get that young audience. So it's probably more of a test and challenge for them to see if they're going to win the nation's hearts over, whereas I think a lot of these stars are quite well established, though they don't really have that sort of Sir and Dame level talent that they had last year with Celia and Sir Stephen Fry. So I think that's probably one of the only things really missing. Is that
Ethan, I'm always the first to call out the BBC because we have to pay for it, so they should be accountable. But I mean, I am quite blown away by the A-list nature. I mean, even I'm a Celebrity has lost its luster, in my opinion. Half the people on I'm a Celebrity I've never heard of, and I work in the media. But if you go through the cast list today, James Blunt, who's a massive pop star, Jerry Hall, famous model. You've got Michael Sheen, who's a